Welcome back, night listeners. You've found your way once again to the Void Tapes, where forgotten voices are archived, and every silence remembers something that used to scream. Tonight's broadcast comes from a damaged reel marked Possession, Volume 7, 5 case files, restored from corrupted tape, 5 hauntings born not from monsters outside, but from the ones we build inside ourselves. You'll hear of promises never spoken, faces stolen, sweetness turned to rot, and the quiet places where mirrors breathe. So, dim your lights, set your headphones close, let the static settle around you. What follows was never meant to be played aloud, yet here you are. The unsaid promise. It was raining over the city again, that kind of steady silver rain that never soaks, never stops, just lingers, filling every reflective surface with a dim, living glow. Eliza always said she loved nights like this. The rain made the glass tower feel softer, gentler, as if the world outside couldn't reach them. She stood by the window of their 31st floor apartment. Her reflection doubled in the glass, champagne flute in hand, lights from 100 other lives flickering across her skin. Behind her, Ben was laughing into his phone, that loud, careless laugh that meant the deal had closed, another bonus secured, another climb up the golden ladder. "Third time's the charm," he said when he hung up, voice bright. Eliza smiled without meaning to. "Isn't that what they say?" He crossed the room, leaned in, kissed her temple. She smelled the faint trace of whiskey on his breath. "We're free again," he said. The words hung in the air longer than he probably meant them to. Free again. From what, exactly? He poured more champagne, handed her the glass. She accepted, careful not to look at the bedroom door, the one that had stayed closed all day. They toasted without touching glasses. The gesture half-hearted. "To us," Ben said. She repeated it softly. "To us." The bubbles tickled her tongue. She drank too fast. Outside, thunder rolled low across the skyline, and for a moment, she thought she heard another sound layered within it. Not quite thunder, not quite wind. A tremor in the air, high and soft, almost like a sigh. The evening played out as all their evenings did. Elegant, curated, beautifully meaningless. Dinner at the new place on West 7th. A glass wall overlooking the rain. The clink of silverware against porcelain. They spoke of markets, of travel, of new furniture for the guest room that would never host guests. Ben talked numbers. Eliza smiled, nodded, drank. When they came home, the city below was still awake, neon veins pulsing under the storm. Ben went to his study, already lost in emails. Eliza lingered in the hallway, tracing her fingers along the smooth plaster of the wall, the faint hum of electricity behind it. She felt something like life pulsing there, faint, irregular, as if the building itself had a heartbeat. She stopped outside the bedroom again. The closed door waited, silent, its white surface faintly glowing with reflected light. Her hand hovered over the handle. Inside, the room would be exactly as she'd left it. Clean, quiet, too quiet. She pressed her forehead against the cool wood and whispered, barely audible, "I'm sorry." Then she turned off the hall light and walked away. Later, as they slept, the city's rain softened into mist. Eliza dreamed of water. She was standing in a shallow pool, black, still, endless. Her reflection rippled faintly with every breath she took. Something beneath the surface was crying. Not loudly, just small sounds, whimpers, hiccups, like a baby trying to remember how to breathe. She knelt, trying to find the source, but when she looked down, her reflection was gone. Only the sound remained. She woke to silence and the faint taste of salt on her lips. The next morning, the world was bright again. Clean sunlight pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Ben was gone. His half of the bed was already cold. He'd left a note on the counter beside her untouched coffee. Lunch with clients. Don't wait up. XO. She stared at the note until the ink blurred. The apartment felt too large, its walls too white. Every sound echoed. She cleaned what didn't need cleaning, arranged flowers that were already arranged, scrolled endlessly through feeds full of people smiling at children she didn't have. At one point, she caught a reflection in the mirror above the dining table and startled for a second she didn't recognize herself. Her face looked thinner, paler. Her eyes, ringed by sleeplessness, looked almost hollow. She turned away quickly, laughing under her breath. "Get it together, Eliza." The laugh didn't sound like hers. By evening, the rain returned, not heavy but persistent, tapping the glass in an irregular rhythm, like fingers testing for cracks. She tried to sleep early, curled beneath the comforter, listening to the city's distant sirens blur into one long sigh. But sleep didn't come. At some point in the night, she became aware of another sound. Faint, high, rhythmic. A whimper. She opened her eyes. The apartment was dark, except for the thin line of light from the hallway. She held her breath and listened. The sound came again. A soft, broken zob. It was inside the room. Eliza sat up slowly, the sheet rustling like paper. Her heart hammered in her chest, that small animal panic that comes before reason. "Ben?" she whispered. No answer. She turned toward the sound. It was coming from the far corner of the room, the one where the rain's reflection shimmered faintly across the glass of the wardrobe. The crying was clearer now. Quiet, fragile, almost tender. It wasn't coming from a person. It wasn't coming from a speaker. It was in the air, like a memory, with a voice. Eliza swung her legs off the bed. The floor was cold beneath her bare feet. "Hello?" she whispered. "Who's there?" The crying stopped. She waited. The silence thickened until she could hear the blood in her ears. And then from somewhere deep in the room, a single shallow breath, followed by another and another. She froze. Her pulse quickened, her throat dry. She whispered again, a little louder. "Ben, is that you?" Something shifted, a soft creak. The faintest movement of air, as though someone small had just stood up from the floor. The crying didn't return, only the faint, damp scent of something new, like milk gone sour. By morning, she convinced herself it had been a dream. Ben noticed nothing. He was cheerful, distracted, immersed in his phone. "You look tired," he said absently. "You should take one of those spa days. You've earned it." She smiled, nodding, pretending to sip her coffee. When he left, she poured it down the drain. The sound of the liquid swirling into the pipes made her stomach twist. She couldn't unhear the crying even in the noise of the city, even in the elevator hum and traffic below. It was always there, faint, like a sound memory her brain refused to delete. That night, she slept with the light on. It didn't help. At 3:11 a.m., she woke to the sound again. This time, it was closer. A wet hiccup, a gasp, a tiny, wordless plea. She didn't move. The air around her was cool, the window half open. The curtains shifted slightly, though there was no wind. Eliza turned her head slowly, inch by inch, until she could see the reflection of the room in the wardrobe glass. Something was standing at the foot of the bed, small, motionless. Its outline flickered faintly, as if the air couldn't quite decide whether to hold it. Her breath caught. "Ben," but when she blinked, the shape was gone. Only the sound remained, that same soft crying, fading back into the corner of the room, until it sounded like it was beneath the floor. In the morning, she told Ben she wanted to move. He looked up from his tablet, frowning. "What? Why?" "I don't like it here anymore." "Eliza, this is the best view in the city." "I know." He studied her, a flicker of concern hidden behind irritation. "You've been dreaming again." She didn't argue. He smiled, reached for her hand. "Come on, we did the right thing. You know that." She looked at him then, at the ease with which he said it, the finality in his tone, and felt something heavy settle in her chest. She nodded. Yes, the right thing. But she didn't let go of his hand. It was cold, colder than it should have been. That night, the crying didn't come from the corner. It came from inside the bed, soft, muffled. like a voice pressed between layers of fabric and bone. Eliza lay still, eyes open, listening as the faint sobs rose and fell beneath her heartbeat. She didn't wake Ben. She just reached out, her hand trembling, and pressed her palm against the mattress. It was warm, and for one breath, one impossible heartbeat, she felt something reach back. The first night I pretended not to hear it. I told myself it was the pipes. The second night, the rain. The third night, I ran out of excuses. It always begins the same way, that small, wet hitch of air. The pause before a child's cry. Not a scream. Just the beginning of one. A half-formed note that never finishes. I lie there beside Ben, counting seconds between breaths, between sobs, waiting for it to stop. It never stops. It only changes pitch, moving around the room the way smell does, finding every corner, every crack. I've stopped turning on the lights. Light doesn't help. It only shows me that nothing is there, which is somehow worse. Ben says he hears nothing. He says my dreams are too loud, that I need rest. But I've watched him flinch when the sound starts. I've seen his eyes open in the dark, glassy and alert, the way a deer listens for the snap of a twig. And yet, every morning, he swears he slept fine. I think that's his way of protecting himself. If he doesn't name it, it can't exist. The crying comes earlier now. Not midnight anymore, but closer to 11, as if whatever it is has learned our schedule. It begins while we're brushing our teeth. A faint whimper behind the hum of the electric toothbrush. I stop mid-motion, foam gathering in the sink. Ben keeps brushing. The mirror fogs between us. He says, through the buzz of the toothbrush, "Don't start." I spit, rinse, stare at my reflection. My face looks unfamiliar, drawn, hollow, the skin beneath my eyes bruised from sleeplessness. Behind the fogged glass, I can almost make out another outline standing over my shoulder. I wipe the mirror clean. There's nothing there. By the fifth night, the crying has rhythm. 3 soft cries, a pause, then again, a pattern, a countdown. I start keeping time by it. 3 cries to boil water, 6 to make tea, 12 before Ben returns from work. It's the only constant left. Ben stops talking about the future. He used to fill the silence with plans: Paris next spring, maybe Tokyo, maybe a bigger apartment. Now he fills it with television. He turns the volume up high enough that the voices blur into static. He thinks I don't notice how his thumb trembles when he holds the remote. The crying cuts through everything, though. Even the news, even the laughter tracks. Always soft, always near. Last night I tried to follow it. The sound seemed to come from the corner of the room, the same corner every time. I sat on the floor, pressing my ear against the wood. It was colder there, the chill rising through my skin like damp breath. The crying grew clearer, not louder, just closer. I could almost make out words, or something like them, hidden beneath the sobs. I whispered, "What do you want?" The sound stopped. For a heartbeat, the world was silent. Then a single note floated up from the floorboards, drawn out, trembling. A lullaby. At first, I thought it was the radio in another apartment, an old song bleeding through the vents, but the melody was wrong. Off-key, uneven, as if sung underwater. The words were impossible to catch, but I knew them anyway. A mother's tune. A promise made to something too small to understand the word promise. My stomach twisted. I backed away from the wall, crawled into bed, pulled the blanket over my head like a child. The melody followed me, slipping between the folds of fabric, threading itself through my breathing until I was humming along without realizing. When I woke, the tune was still in my throat. Today, Ben told me we should go away for a while. He said fresh air might help. He said he's worried about me, but the way he said it made it sound like he's worried about himself. We argued. I told him he's pretending again. He said he's tired of ghosts that only I can hear. Then he said something he shouldn't have, that maybe if we'd made different choices, I wouldn't be like this. The room went very still after that. Even the hum of the refrigerator stopped, as if the whole apartment was listening. Ben looked away first. I didn't mean, "Yes, you did." He left without finishing his coffee. When the door clicked shut, I thought I heard the lullaby again, faint but triumphant, as if someone small had just learned to clap. Evening again. The sky is the color of bruises. I sit on the bed with the lights off, waiting. The first cry comes exactly at midnight. Then another. Then another. 3. Always 3. I whisper. I hear you. The crying stops. The room exhales. Then, from somewhere behind the wall, the lullaby begins anew, slower, heavier, dragging each syllable like a weight. Hush now, little one. Hush. Hush. My skin prickles. The melody stretches, distorts, reverses, until it's only sound, no words, just tone, a pulse moving through the walls. The air thickens, pressing down on my chest. I can't tell if the sound is coming from outside or from inside my head. Maybe there's no difference anymore. I cover my ears, but it doesn't help. The lullaby lives in the air. It vibrates through the bones of the building, through the glass, through me. I whisper for it to stop. It doesn't. Instead, something new joins it, a low, rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming on wood. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. The same pattern as the crying. I realize it's coming from beneath the bed. I crouch down, heart hammering. The floor beneath the bed is dark, a small cave of shadows. The tapping stops the moment I look. Hello? My voice cracks. Nothing. Then, a whisper so faint I almost mistake it for the creak of the mattress. Cold. I pull back, hitting the wall. Ben wakes to my movement. What is it? I can barely speak. It's under the bed. He sighs, the sound heavy with disbelief. Eliza, please. There's nothing here. He kneels, looks under the bed, finds only dust and the pale outline of my slippers. See, he says, but I can still hear the whisper. Cold. It's not under the bed anymore. It's behind him. Ben doesn't believe me, but the sound changes him too. It grows keter, jittery. He starts sleeping in the guest room. Says my breathing keeps him awake. He leaves lights on in every hall. Sometimes, I catch him standing in the nursery, the one that was never used, staring at the empty crib we bought on a whim years ago, when we thought, maybe next year. I ask what he's thinking. He says, nothing, but I see the tears on his hands. The lullaby follows us, even when we're apart. It plays through the vents, hums through the water pipes, hides in the drone of the refrigerator motor. At the office, Ben says he hears faint music under the air conditioning, like someone humming. He laughs when he tells me, but his laugh is brittle, ready to break. We both stopped pretending it isn't real. We just don't agree on what it is. Tonight, the pattern changes. No crying. No lullaby. Just silence, thick enough to hum. I sit up, waiting for the first sound. When it comes, it isn't a cry. It's applause. 3 slow claps. Soft, deliberate, child-sized. Then a voice high, clear, close to my ear. 3 strikes, mother. I freeze. The air around me chills. The hair on my arms lifting. 3 strikes. The voice repeats, gentler this time, almost loving. Now we stay. I turn toward the sound, heart slamming against my ribs. The room is empty. The window glows faintly with streetlight, rain blurring the city beyond. In the reflection, I see myself sitting on the bed, mouth open, eyes wide, and behind me 3 small handprints bloom slowly across the glass. 1, 2, 3, fog forming under invisible palms. I whisper, I'm sorry. The handprints fade. The reflection remains. Only now, my mouth is still open, still whispering, but no sound comes out. The lullaby returns, distant again, looping from somewhere deep below the floor. Hush now, little one. Hush, hush. I stopped checking clocks after that night. Time no longer moved forward in this apartment. It just circled the same sleepless hours, slower and slower, like a record warping under too much heat. The crying, the clapping, the whisper, it all left something behind. Silence, but not the comforting kind. It was the sort of quiet that waits, the kind that leans against the walls and breathes with you. Ben doesn't talk about what happened. He hasn't said a single word about the handprints on the window. When I mentioned them at breakfast, he looked at me as if I'd spoken a foreign language. He poured his coffee too full, watched it spill over his fingers, and still didn't blink. I think denial has become his last religion. The lullaby began again 2 nights later. It came from the vent above the bed, a low, syrupy hum, the sound of a throat trying to remember a melody that once meant comfort. The notes dragged against each other, wrong but familiar. I knew that tune. I used to hum it absent-mindedly while folding laundry, years ago, before the first clinic, before the guilt hardened into habit. Now it plays itself without me. At first I covered my ears. Then I realized that made no difference. The sound wasn't entering through air but through memory. It vibrated behind my eyes, through my teeth, down my spine. Each note loosened something in me, a knot I didn't know I'd tied. Ben shouted from the study, "Turn off that noise." I told him it wasn't me. He slammed the door and didn't come out for hours. When he finally did, he looked pale, exhausted, his shirt damp at the collar. He didn't say what he'd heard behind that door, but I saw the smear of white salt near the threshold, like he'd drawn a circle and then kicked it away before I could notice. The lullaby changed after that. It grew fuller, layered as if more than one voice was singing. At times it sounded like 2 women, at others like a chorus of small, uncertain throats learning the tune together. Their timing was off. Sometimes the song stumbled. Sometimes it stopped mid-note, as if someone had turned off a switch inside their lungs. I began hearing it outside the apartment too. Elevator shafts, parking garages, the hiss of the espresso machine downstairs. It followed the rhythm of my heartbeat. Once, while waiting for a taxi, I caught myself humming it under my breath. A woman beside me turned and said, smiling politely, "That's an old lullaby. My grandmother used to sing it." I asked her what it was called. She frowned, mouth open as if to answer, then stepped back, eyes unfocused. When the taxi came, she didn't get in. Ben has stopped sleeping altogether. He spends nights pacing from room to room, muttering about business calls and deadlines that don't exist. I hear him on the phone with no one, his voice brittle with forced cheer. Sometimes he stops mid-sentence, as if listening to something on the other end. Sometimes he says quietly, "I told you we couldn't. I told you we weren't ready." I stay in bed and pretend not to hear. Last night, I woke to the sound of him moving furniture in the guest room. The scraping dragged across the floor like slow thunder. When I looked in, he was setting up the old crib, the one we kept disassembled in storage. He didn't even look surprised to see me. He just kept tightening screws, humming the same lullaby, completely off key. "Ben," I whispered, "what are you doing?" He didn't look up. "She'll need somewhere to sleep." "She?" He stopped, wrench in hand, finally meeting my eyes. "You don't hear them anymore, do you?" he asked. "There are 3 of them now, but only one talks." I wanted to tell him to stop, to forget, to leave the room, but the lullaby was still playing, not from the vent this time, but from the crib itself. It pulsed in the wood, in the screws, in the air between us. Ben smiled, thin and distant. "She's almost home," he said. By morning he was gone, his phone on the counter, his car still in the garage, wallet missing. I searched the apartment till my throat hurt from calling his name. Not in a message, just the crib, perfectly made, a folded blanket inside patterned with tiny yellow moons. The air above it shimmered faintly, the way heat distorts pavement. If I stared too long, the shimmer took shape, small hands gripping the rail, a round head tilting upward, curious, patient. I forced myself to blink. The shape vanished, leaving the blanket unwrinkled, untouched. That night, I moved the crib into the hall. The lullaby followed. Days blur now. I can't tell if it's still raining or if the windows are crying for us. The air smells of milk and ashes. I've begun recording the sounds on my phone. Every time I play them back, there's nothing, just the faint hum of electricity. But if I press the phone to my chest while it records, the speaker plays something new when I replay it. A heartbeat, small and uneven, too fast to be mine. I started labeling the files. File 1, Night 12. File 2, Under the Vent. And File 3, Cradle Song, complete. The last one is 23 minutes long. I listen to it on loop, trying to hear where the song ends, but it doesn't. It folds back on itself. Endless. Perfect. Sometimes, between verses, I hear Ben's voice whispering something I can't make out, a number, maybe, or a name. Sometimes, I hear my own. 2 nights ago, I dreamed of a hospital corridor lined with bassinets, each one empty, except the last. In that one, 3 infants lay side by side, their faces peaceful, identical. Their eyes were closed, but their mouths moved in unison, shaping words too small to hear. A nurse passed me in the hall, her face hidden by the glare of fluorescent light. She handed me a clipboard, signature required. When I looked down, the paper was blank, except for a single sentence. "You promised to come back." I woke with pen marks across my palm. The walls breathe differently now. They expand when I inhale, contract when I exhale, as if matching my rhythm. When the lullaby begins, the drywall quivers, tiny cracks forming like veins. Dust falls in slow spirals, glittering in the candlelight I keep on the nightstand. I told myself I'd stop lighting candles after the 3rd miscarriage. That was part of the deal we made with ourselves. No more rituals, no more mourning. But the candle helps. It anchors me to the physical world when the sound tries to pull me through, because that's what it wants. It wants me to follow. Last night, I gave in. I sat beside the crib, the candle flickering weakly in my hand, and I whispered the words I'd tried not to remember, the words I used to hum, the words I heard my mother sing the day she told me, "Children remember promises, even the ones you never speak out loud." As soon as the melody left my lips, the lullaby shifted. It matched me note for note, breath for breath. The voices behind the walls swelled, filling every inch of the room. It was beautiful in a terrible way, too full to bear. Every regret I'd buried found harmony. Every silence I'd defended found a chorus. When the last note died, the candle went out. The darkness that followed wasn't empty. It felt thick, almost tangible, as though something had stepped into the room and taken the light's place. I smelled sugar and blood. A small hand brushed my ankle, then another, then a third. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just whispered, "It's okay. I'm here." Henceforth, the air around me grew warmer. For a moment, only a moment, I felt peace. Then, from somewhere behind me, Ben's voice murmured, "Don't answer them." I turned. He was standing in the doorway, pale, hollow, eyes reflecting candlelight that no longer burned. He looked older, or maybe younger, I couldn't tell which. His clothes were wet, as if he'd been standing in the rain for days. "Where did you go?" I asked. "I tried to leave," he said. "They don't let you leave." "Who?" He pointed toward the crib. "The ones who learned to sing." The lullaby started again, soft and slow, perfectly in tune now. Ben covered his ears. "Stop it," he begged. "Please stop it." I reached for him, but he stepped back, shaking his head. "They don't want you anymore," he said. "They want me." I was the one who said yes. Then he was gone again. The doorway empty, the hallway stretching longer than it should. The lullaby has changed once more. It no longer comes from the vent or the crib. It comes from inside me. Every breath I take carries the melody. Every heartbeat hums its rhythm. When I speak, the notes curl around my words, shaping them, distorting them. When I cry, it sounds like singing. I record again tonight, though I know the device will capture nothing. Still, I need proof, not for the world, for myself. Proof that there is a sound between guilt and forgiveness, that somewhere inside that vibration lies a promise I never made but still must keep. The candle flickers, the crib creaks, the voices begin their chorus. "Hush now, little one. Hush, hush, only now." The words are clear. They are calling me by name. The night no longer ends. I don't mean it drags, I mean it refuses to move. Every clock in the apartment is frozen at the same time, 3:07 a.m. I have tried changing the batteries, resetting them, smashing one against the floor. Each time I blink, the hands repair themselves. the numbers glowing steady and blue. 3-7. The hour of the undone. The lullaby has stopped pretending to come from anywhere else. It's in the walls, the pipes, the mirrors, the air. It's a pulse, a heartbeat stretched through drywall. Sometimes I think it matches mine. Sometimes I think it's teaching me a new rhythm. I have learned to hum along. When I do, the room calms. The shadows move less. The temperature rises just enough to feel human again. That's what the song wants. Participation. A voice to echo back. A mother's answer to her children. I keep giving it one. Ben hasn't come back. At least, not in the way people mean that word. There are moments when I catch him. In reflections, the chrome of the refrigerator door, the black of the television screen, the puddle forming beneath the dripping faucet. He's always standing behind me, never facing the same direction twice. His expression doesn't change, but the background does. Sometimes the nursery, sometimes the clinic waiting room. Sometimes a place I don't recognize, a hallway lined with empty cribs fading into darkness. I've started talking to him. He doesn't answer. But when I speak, the lullaby softens, as if listening. Tonight, I asked, is this our punishment? The reflection blinked. Once, slowly, as if to say, no, this is our turn. The apartment smells different now. It's not rot, it's milk, faint and sweet, mixed with something metallic. I keep cleaning the countertops, the sink, the floor. No matter how much I scrub, the smell seeps back through the vents. The candle doesn't help anymore. The flame bends away from me, leaning toward the corner where the crib once stood. I moved the crib again to the living room this time, under the window. I thought the morning light might silence whatever breeze inside it. But there is no morning anymore. Only that gray, eternal half hour before dawn. The light outside never brightens. The city below looks frozen. Cars stopped mid-motion. Rain caught in suspension like glass beads in the air. Maybe we aren't the ones trapped here. Maybe the world moved on and forgot to take us with it. I found Ben's phone this morning. It was in the crib, screen lit, a single voice memo saved under the name Lullaby 3. I pressed play. There was static at first, then breathing heavy, uneven. Then his voice. If you're hearing this, it means you stayed. Don't sing back. That's how it learns your name. It doesn't forgive, Eliza. It remembers. 3 promises broken, 3 voices born. I tried to. The recording cut off, with a sound like wet fabric tearing. I deleted the file. It reappeared instantly. Same timestamp, same title. I threw the phone across the room. When it hit the wall, the lullaby swelled, triumphant, as if pleased with itself. The voices have multiplied. There are no longer 3. There are dozens now, soft, layered, endless. Some sing, some whisper, some only breathe. They fill every silence until there's no room left for thought. I tried leaving once. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, opened the door. The hallway outside was gone. Just a long corridor of white light, stretching forever. The sound followed me into it, echoing from nowhere, every step landing on the same tile over and over. When I turned around, the apartment door was waiting behind me, open like a mouth. I stepped back inside. The clock still said 3-7. The candle was still burning. Now I understand why Ben couldn't leave. This isn't an apartment anymore. It's a womb, and we are the heartbeat inside it. The lullaby has changed its lyrics again. It no longer says hush. Now it says stay, over and over. Gentle and absolute. Stay, stay, stay. Sometimes it uses my voice to say it. Sometimes Ben's. Last night, I heard the voices counting. 1, 2, 3, and then a 4th. That's when I realized what the 4th was. Me. I am not separate from the crying anymore. When the air trembles, my chest trembles with it. When the walls exhale, so do I. There's comfort in that, in belonging to the same breath. Maybe this is what motherhood feels like, to dissolve into something larger, something that needs you more than the world ever did. I've stopped eating. I can't taste anything but dust, but I'm not hungry. The air feeds me. It carries warmth, and that's enough. Sometimes I feel small hands on my back, pressing lightly, guiding me toward the bedroom. The sheets are always smooth, as if remade moments before I arrive. When I lie down, the mattress hums not vibrating but singing, deep inside its coils. The lullaby seeps through, tuning itself to my heartbeat. Every breath feels rehearsed. I close my eyes, and the darkness pulses with color. Gold, pink, milk, white. Shapes form and vanish tiny fists, mouths learning to open, eyes still sealed. They move together, drifting in rhythm with the song. I whisper to them, "I'm here." They answer, "Stay." The building has gone silent. No elevator hum, no neighbor footsteps, no traffic below. It feels like the rest of the world has turned off the volume. The only sound left is the lullaby, and sometimes the faint clapping that follows. Always three, never four. The first clap comes when I speak aloud about leaving, the second when I pack a bag, the third before I can open the door. After that, I forget why I wanted to leave. Today, I notice the walls moving again, slow, steady contractions, the way breath expands lungs. The cracks have sealed themselves, but the paint ripples like skin beneath shallow water. When I press my hand against it, it pushes back, gentle but firm. Something behind it is growing. I whispered, "What do you want from me?" The answer came, clear and soft, in 100 small voices. Promise he kept. Then, a sound like fabric tearing again. Not loud, but deep, like the building was exhaling something it had held for too long. The air thickened with dust, glittering and wet. When it cleared, the crib was gone. In its place stood a door I'd never seen before. Child-sized, painted white, handle low, as if meant for small hands. The lullaby leaked through its edges. Tender, beckoning. I crawled toward it, unable to stop myself. The door opened onto light, not daylight. Something softer, denser, the light of underwater places. It glowed without source, filled the air with the smell of sugar and smoke. I stepped through. The room beyond was endless, lined with bassinets. In each one lay a figure the size of a child but shaped like a thought, translucent, trembling. They were all humming, all in perfect unison. I walked between them, barefoot, the floor warm like skin. At the far end stood Ben. He was smiling. "You stayed?" he said. "I couldn't leave." He nodded. "Neither could I. They needed us. Someone has to sing." He turned his head toward the nearest bassinet. Inside lay nothing visible, only a ripple in the air. "Listen," he whispered. I did. The lullaby rose around us, surrounding, soothing, devouring. Every note burrowed into my chest until it became breath. For a moment, I saw myself, my own body, lying on the apartment floor, candle burned down to nothing. The clock still reading 3:07, my mouth open, whispering the same word again and again. "Stay. Stay. Stay." Ben reached out his hand. I took it. It felt like touching memory. Now, I understand. There was never a haunting. There was only an invitation. A song waiting for its echo. We refused it 3 times. Now, the song refuses to end. When I sing, the world steadies. When I stop, it frays. So I keep singing. The walls pulse in rhythm. Content. The air smells of milk again. Sometimes I feel small hands weaving my hair. Sometimes I feel breath against my ear. When I whisper, "Are you here?" the answer is always the same. We never left. It's easier now. The clocks have disappeared. The city outside has turned to light. There is no difference between the air and the voice and the thought of sleep. I rest when they rest. I wake when they cry. I hum when the silence grows lonely. Ben sits across from me, always humming too, though I can't tell if he's real anymore. Maybe he never was. The lullaby has become language, and language has become air. There's nothing left to regret, only the sound we keep alive. I think this is what forgiveness feels like. Not relief, not peace, but endurance. We stay because the song needs singers. We stay because someone must remember the promise that was never said aloud. And in this still hour that never ends, with the world outside frozen mid-breath, I finally understand the only truth that matters. Some promises are too small to speak and too loud to die. I don't know how long I've been here. There are no clocks anymore, only the rhythm of the lullaby and the slow blinking of the candlelight. Though I haven't lit a candle in days, the flame just appears when I wake. It always burns in threes, 2 steady flames, one faint and flickering, a third light. At first I thought it was another illusion, one more trick of exhaustion, but now I know better. The third light isn't a flame. It's them, the one who stayed. The air tastes like sugar and ash again. Ben hums somewhere behind me. His voice is thin now, more breath than sound, but it keeps time with mine. We don't speak much anymore. Words feel unnecessary, too heavy for this place. Here, sound means more than speech. A sigh can build a bridge. A heartbeat can summon warmth. The lullaby has become our atmosphere. It fills the lungs when we breathe, and we breathe to keep it alive. I used to think I was losing myself to it. Now I understand that I'm finally dissolving into something that remembers me better than I remember myself. Sometimes, when the lullaby softens, I see the apartment the way it was before. The marble countertops, the half-finished wine glasses, the skyline blinking through rain. For a moment, I believe it's still there, the world of errands and phones and brunches and taxis. Then the third light flickers, and the illusion fades. The city folds back into mist. The walls turn warm again, breathing. The lullaby resumes its low, steady hum, as if comforting a restless child. Ben says we're between places, not gone, not alive, just stayed. He says it like a choice, but I know it isn't. Staying isn't something you do. It's something that happens when you fail to leave at the right time. Yesterday, or maybe years ago, I walked down the hall that used to lead to the elevator. The carpet had grown soft, like moss. Every step left an impression that pulsed faintly before fading. At the end of the hall, where the elevator doors should have been, I found a mirror. It was taller than the wall itself, reaching into nothing. When I looked in, I didn't see myself, not exactly. I saw 3 figures behind me, small, glowing faintly, like candle flames through milk glass. Their faces were unfinished, their eyes too bright, but they didn't frighten me. They looked expectant, waiting for permission. I knelt, whispering, "Are you the ones who cried?" The smallest one stepped forward. The air around it rippled, and I felt a tug inside my chest, as if something long hidden recognized its own echo. A voice not from its mouth, but from everywhere whispered, "We learned your song." The third light flared behind them, steady now, no longer flickering. Ben doesn't see them, or maybe he does, but he sees them differently. When I ask, he only says, "Don't call them by name." Then he turns away, humming to himself, shoulders shaking as if with laughter or tears. I can't tell which anymore. He has started drawing on the walls. Circles, mostly 3 of them overlapping like ripples in water, inside the smallest. He writes words I don't recognize, old jagged letters that seem to burn faintly in the dark. He says they keep the air balanced. He says the lullaby gets hungry otherwise. I believe him. The few times I've tried erasing the symbols, the temperature drops instantly, and the silence deepens until it hurts. The third light follows me now, wherever I walk. It hovers near my shoulder, always trembling slightly, as if unsure whether to burn or breathe. It flickers faster when I remember things, small, ordinary things. A grocery aisle, a heartbeat on an ultrasound monitor, the taste of mint on Ben's lips. It pulses brightest when I think of the word mother. I've stopped trying not to say it. When I whisper mother, the lullaby changes key. It grows sweeter, less distorted, almost human again. Tonight, the air feels heavier, expectant. Ben has gone quiet. The third light is strong, steady, waiting. I light 3 candles, the first in memory, the second in regret, the third in acknowledgement. They burn cleanly, without smoke. I sit cross-legged on the floor and open the drawer where I keep the old ultrasound photo, the one I could never throw away. 3 blurs of light, faint and overlapping, too early to be real, too small to be named. I trace the image with my thumb until the paper grows warm. The lullaby begins on its own. Gentle, curious, patient. This time, I don't hum along. I just listen. The melody builds slowly, each note rising like a breath that never quite exhales. The voices inside it sound older now, clearer. Not infants anymore, but children learning language, my language. Then one voice separates from the rest. Close, almost touching. Mother, it says. The word drips into me like light. You stayed. I nod. Yes. The second voice joins. He left. I know. The third voice, quieter, tremulous, asks, will you go now? I shake my head. I can't. The air warms, almost tender. Then we forgive you. The lights dim. The candle flames shrink until only the third remains. It stretches, elongates, becoming a thin column of brightness reaching toward the ceiling. The other 2 extinguish themselves in silence. For the first time, the room smells of nothing. Not milk, not ash, not rain, just air. Clean, cold air. Ben appears in the doorway, his face hollow, his eyes bright, with the same faint glow that fills the third light. He smiles, the real kind, the kind I remember. They're done singing, he says. It's your turn. He steps aside, revealing the small door again, the one that used to lead to the bassinet room. Only now it's smaller, barely wide enough for me to crawl through. Beyond it, I can see color. Ricin, maybe. The suggestion of morning. Real morning. The first I've seen since the clock stopped. The lullaby fades to a single sustained note, pure and soft. I kneel by the door. The floor hums under my palms, as if urging me forward. Ben's voice behind me trembles. Don't look back. I won't. I crawl toward the light. It's warm, not burning, just enough to make my skin remember being alive. As I move, the walls seem to breathe one final time, exhaling everything they've held. I hear whispers, small, fading, not words, just sounds of release. When I reach the threshold, the third light bends, wrapping itself around me like a thread of gold. It seeps into my hands, my chest, my throat. I feel it moving upward, like something gently reclaiming its place. I look back once, despite what Ben said. He's still there, half in shadow, smiling faintly. His face is already fading, dissolving into the dim. I'll wait, he says. I know. I whisper. Then I step through. For the first time in forever, I hear silence. True silence, not absence of sound, but presence of peace. It fills me, steady and endless. The air here smells of soil after rain, of clean sheets, of breath. I look down. The third light hovers before me, no longer trembling. It splits into 3, each one smaller, brighter, steadier. They circle me once, slow, deliberate, then drift upward, vanishing into the pale sky. I want to follow, but I can't. This is their way out, not mine. Instead, I stand at the edge of whatever world this is and whisper the words I never got to say aloud. I would have stayed anyway. I always would have stayed. The sky brightens in response. Not blinding, just soft, forgiving. And for the first time since the rain, I feel warmth on my face. Not fire, not ghost light, just morning. I don't know where I am now. The apartment, the womb, the haunting, all of it feels far away, as if it belonged to someone else's story. Maybe it did. The silence remains, but it no longer frightens me. It hums faintly, like breath beneath thought, steady and familiar. I think I've become the echo, the other half of the song. Maybe that's what staying really means. Not punishment, not purgatory, just the space between sound and memory. The third light flickers once more, somewhere behind my eyelids, and I realize it's not gone after all. It lives in the small place where grief becomes warmth, where love, even broken, still glows. And as I finally close my eyes, I hear the faintest sound. Not a cry, not a lullaby, just 3 soft claps, gentle and complete. A promise kept. The collector's shadow. It started with a sound I still hear when the room is too quiet. The hollow click of a brick striking something soft, followed by silence so deep it swallowed its own echo. I tell myself it was just another stray, another nameless thing in the alley behind the tracks. But the truth is, I knew that cat. Everyone in our street did. A calico with eyes too bright for dirt-colored fur, always slinking through the market stalls, brushing against ankles, collecting pieces of kindness like crumbs. They called her Mosaic because of her colors. I called her nothing. Calling her anything would have meant admitting she mattered. That afternoon was hot. August heat pressed the world flat. The others had gone home. I was alone, angry, itching for control over something smaller than me. When I found the cat behind the dumpsters, she didn't even run. She just looked up, slow, curious, tail flicking once, like she trusted me. The first throw missed, the second didn't. I don't remember lifting the brick a third time, but the sound told me I had. A dull crunch, like stepping on gravel underwater. Then quiet, too quiet. Even the flies held their breath. I buried her behind the fence near the scrapyard. Not deep, just enough that no one would see. When I pressed the dirt flat, the ground pulsed back under my hand, as if something beneath it was breathing. I told myself it was heat rising from the soil. I told myself a lot of things that night. By the time I reached home, the streetlights were on. Their glow made everything look thin, unreal. I washed my hands until my knuckles split, but the smell stayed not blood, not rot, something metallic and warm, like the inside of a body that still remembered beating. My mother asked about the scratches on my arms. I said I'd climb the fence again. She sighed, didn't look up from the sink, and told me to stop coming home so late. Her voice was tired, flat, like a recording that had been played too many times. Jag åt dinner in silence. The fork felt heavy. Every clink against the plate sounded like claws tapping glass. That night, when I turned off the light, I saw the shape on the ceiling. At first it looked like smoke, but it didn't move like smoke it breathed. A slow expansion, contraction, rhythmic and deliberate. I blinked, and it was gone. But the smell of warm metal filled the room again, and somewhere under the window, something purred. The first dream came soon after. I was standing in the alley again, the brick still in my hand, only the world was too big now. The walls stretched up into the dark, the dumpsters towering like cliffs. The cat sat in front of me, not broken, not bleeding, whole, but wrong. Her body was longer, her legs too thin, her eyes twin coins of glass, reflecting nothing. She opened her mouth, and the sound that came out wasn't a meow. It was the scrape of stone on stone, a low growl that vibrated inside my ribs. The air around her rippled, and her shadow stretched, reaching the length of the alley, curling toward my feet. When it touched me, I felt cold climb up my legs like water. Then I woke, my bedsheet tangled, the same cold clinging to my skin. For days, I avoided the alley. I walked the long way to school, pretended the shortcut didn't exist. But the cat followed. Not her, her absence. Every time I blinked, I saw color moving in the corners of my sight. Orange, black, white, the palette of guilt. At school, someone whispered that the janitor found cat fur in the drains behind the gym. They said it clogged the pipes like human hair. I laughed, too loudly, then went to the bathroom and vomited. It got worse after the rain. Our street floods easily, turning the pavement into mirrors. That evening, I saw footprints on the water, path prints, circling mine. I ran home, but when I locked my door, the handle felt warm, as if another hand had just let go. In the mirror above the sink, something flicked past, a tail striped, vanishing just as I turned. The lights dimmed, and in the faint hum of electricity, I heard the soft rasp of breathing that wasn't mine. I tried confessing to the air once. "Okay," I whispered. I did it. You can stop now. Nothing stopped. Instead, the room darkened around the edges, the way eyes close before sleep. And then, a sound, deep and slow, a purr that shook the floor. I couldn't tell if it was forgiveness or warning. That night, the dream returned, and this time, I wasn't alone. Something huge crouched behind me, a shape made of dust and fur and shadow. Its breath lifted my hair. Its eyes glowed amber, steady, patient. When it spoke, the voice was both inside and outside my skull. We remember. I turned, and the shadow unfolded. A cat and not a cat, its body stretching beyond the limits of sight. It leaned close, its nose nearly touching mine. You collect pain, it said. Now you will collect kindness. The words burned cold as they entered me. Then pain sharp, immediate, like claws pressing through flesh without breaking it. I woke screaming. There were bruises on my arms, 4 perfect marks, spaced like the grip of a paw. No blood, no tear in the skin, just pressure, as if something had held me in its sleep. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe it? A boy haunted by a cat he killed. It sounds like a fairy tale for guilty children, but the bruises stayed. They never faded, just shifted color, purple to green to black, then back again, a cycle that matched the moon. And sometimes, when I tried to ignore them, they pulsed. The first time it forced my hand, I was crossing the street. A stray dog wandered into traffic, thin, mangy ribs showing. I looked away. My body didn't. My legs moved before I decided to. I ran forward, grabbed the dog by the collar, yanked it to the sidewalk, just as a car sped past. The driver honked, the dog barked, and I stood there, hard hammering. When I looked down, the bruises on my arms glowed faintly, like fire seen through skin. That night, for the first time in months, I slept without dreaming, but in the morning, the marks were darker. Now I know the rule. Each time I ignore cruelty, they tighten. Each time I help, they ease. It isn't mercy, it's management. The shadow doesn't want repentance, it wants obedience. When I walk past an injured animal, my arms ache until I stop. When I speak harshly to someone, the bruises bloom fresh. When I do good, they cool, like hands releasing. I can't tell if this is justice or possession, maybe both. I still hear the purring sometimes, not menacing now, just constant, like a machine running under my ribs. I talk to it. I ask what it wants beyond this endless balance. It never answers in words, but sometimes I catch my reflection in a window and see another set of eyes blinking over mine. Umber, unblinking, patient. People think I've changed. They call me kind, say I have a soft spot for strays. They don't know what kindness costs. They don't know what hums beneath my skin when I forget. The bruises never fade completely. They live there, reminders, or maybe roots. When I pet a cat now, I feel warmth move from my palms into the air, as if the shadow approves. Sometimes, late at night, when the city is still, I think I see mosaics sitting on the windowsill. Not whole, not broken, just watching. Her tail flicks once, facile ponctuation, and from somewhere deep inside me, the purr answers back. I don't remember the moment the dreams began again, only that I stopped waking up, rested. Sleep became another corridor I had to patrol, each step padded with fur and whisper. At first, the cat stayed small in those dreams. She would sit at the edge of my vision, tail curled neatly around her feet, eyes bright enough to hurt. When I tried to move toward her, the floor turned liquid. When I tried to speak, sand poured from my mouth. Then, night after night, she grew, not fed along, as if the shadow of her stretched faster than her body could follow. By the end of the first week, her head brushed the ceiling. When she breathed, the whole room rose and fell. She never lunged, never hissed. She only watched me, and every time I blinked, her pupils widened until there was nothing left in the world but that colorless stare. I started keeping a notebook by the bed, hoping that writing down the dreams would drain them. It didn't. The notebook filled itself. Sometimes I'd wake to find whole pages covered in tight, looping handwriting that wasn't mine. Rows of symbols, half-moons, crossed circles, paw prints drawn like signatures. At the bottom of every page, one line repeated, "Collect what was lost." I tore out those pages, burned them in the sink. In the smoke, I could smell fur singe, and something else, wet soil, the kind that remembers graves. The bruises have changed too. They used to fade to green. Now they shine faintly under the skin, as if lit from beneath. When I touch them, my fingertips tingle. When I dream, they pulse. I've tried covering them, bandages, long sleeves, even duct tape once. The next morning, the tape lies on the floor, peeled away cleanly, the bruises brighter than before. They want to breathe. One afternoon in the park, I found a bird tangled in fishing line. For a second, I hesitated. The bruise on my right arm flared hot. I knelt, freed the creature, set it on my palm. It didn't fly. It looked at me, head tilted, unafraid. Its eye was the same amber as mosaics. When it finally lifted off, the heat in my arm faded. The relief felt good, too good, like scratching a wound you shouldn't. That night I dreamed of the same bird perched on the cat's back, both of them watching me as if waiting for the next act. The dreams don't stay in sleep anymore. They leak. Sometimes I'll blink and see paw prints on my desk, fading as soon as I notice them. Sometimes I hear the dull thump of a tail against the wall, slow and rhythmic, like a heart with too many chambers. Yesterday I found a single whisker on my pillow, white, stiff, impossibly long. I threw it away. An hour later, another appeared, exactly the same place. The cat talks now, not with words, through thought. The pressure behind the eyes, a shape forming out of silence. Her voice isn't cruel. It's patient, almost maternal. It says things like, "There are others who hurt what breathes. You will make it right. We begin at dawn." And I do. I wake early, compelled to walk the streets, finding small creatures caught in traps, nests knocked from trees, a puppy shivering under a bench. I fix what I can. I feed. I carry. I bury. The shadow hums approval through my bones. At night, I sleep on the floor because the bed feels too soft, too human. The dreams come easier that way. People notice. They call me kind again. They post photos of me online, local teen rescues, abandoned animals. I see the comments. Maybe he's found his calling. They don't see the bruises. They don't see my hands shaking when I pass a dead squirrel and keep walking too long. By the time I turn back, the air itself feels like claws closing. It's not always kindness. Sometimes the shadow demands harder things. A boy in my class threw stones at pigeons after lunch. That night, the bruises burned like iron brands. I went to his house without knowing why. I found him sitting on the porch, hands bandaged. He said a stray cat had attacked him out of nowhere. Biggest thing I ever saw. He laughed when he said it. I didn't. When I came home, there were muddy paw prints across my window. They formed words before fading. We remember. The notebook writes again, even when I hide all the pens. This time the sentences are in full English, each one careful, curved like claws. Mercy is heavier than cruelty. Every collector must carry what he kept. Don't stop. The last line is written 3 times. The ink glows faintly in the dark, the same color as the bruises. I tried to ignore the commands. I wanted one normal night, just TV, cold soda, the illusion of peace. Halfway through the show, the static on the screen thickened, turned black. Something moved inside it, slow, deliberate. A paw pressed against the glass from the other side, smearing light. Then the smell returned, warm metal, fur after rain. I reached out before I could stop myself. The screen was cold, wet. When I pulled my hand back, there was a small print of blood where my fingers had been. The bruises pulsed once, like a satisfied heartbeat. I turned off the TV. The reflection on the blank screen stayed a moment longer than me. I think the cat wants me to become it, not in body, but in purpose. To see as it saw, to feel as it felt. When I ended it, sometimes in the mirror my pupils narrow. not round slit. The light hurts more now. I keep the curtains closed. I move quietly. I eat less. Meat tastes wrong. Milk doesn't. The purring never stops. It's a sound only I can hear. A second pulse in my chest. When I hold still enough, I can feel it ripple through my ribs, patient and sure. Last night the dream was different. I wasn't in the alley or the park or my room. I was in a place made entirely of fur and shadow. The ground shifted like breathing. Above me hung 3 moons, white, orange, black, turning slow as eyes in the dark. The cat stood in front of me, enormous now, the size of a house, her fur woven from thousands of smaller shapes moving beneath the surface. She lowered her head until her nose touched my forehead. The pressure was gentle, infinite. "You have begun," she said. "But beginning is hunger." Her breath smelled of earth and rain and my own fear. "You will dream others' pain until you fill the world with balance." Then she opened her mouth, and I saw inside not teeth but stars, each one pulsing like the marks on my arms. I woke screaming, the taste of soil in my mouth, my fingernails packed with dirt. Outside the window, something huge moved between the streetlights, its tail brushing the pavement like a whisper. I don't sleep much now. I drift. When I do, I wake in new places, doorsteps, bus stops, under bridges, each time near an animal that needs help, each time the bruise is calm, only after I've done something about it. People leave food for the cat boy now. They think it's charity. I think it's tribute. Sometimes I wonder if Mosaic forgave me. Then I remember what forgiveness would mean. The end of the purring. The silence of purpose. And I realize forgiveness isn't the point. Retribution is. Correction is. Continuance is. I am her shadow now, moving through alleys, collecting kindness to pay off cruelty, one small act at a time. When I sleep, I dream of her paw resting over mine, warm, steady, endless. And when I wake, the marks on my arms glow softly in the dark, guiding me toward the next living thing that needs saving. Or minding. I keep my sleeves down even in summer. The bruises have learned to glow. Under thin fabric they pulse like lanterns, faint but constant, a heartbeat that isn't mine. At night the light seeps through the weave, painting my room with moving stripes. Sometimes I watch them dance on the ceiling and imagine I'm inside the ribcage of something vast, something still breathing me in. People think I'm healing. They say the color in my face has come back. No one notices the light. Maybe it hides when others look. Or maybe it exists only for me, an internal sunrise that never reaches the horizon. I've begun to see other collectors. They don't call themselves that, of course. They walk dogs, rescue birds, sweep ants off sidewalks. But I can see the shimmer in their skin, the faint pulse along the throat. When our eyes meet, recognition passes between us quick, guilty, relieved. No one speaks. It's a quiet fraternity built on penance. Last week I passed a woman feeding strays behind a bakery. She had a burn scar shaped like a paw across her wrist. When she smiled, the smell of rain filled the air. Though the sky was clear, we didn't need words. I knew her purpose. She knew mine. The dreams return heavier now. They begin with light, not darkness. A cold blue that spreads from the bruises until it fills everything. In that light, the cat appears, larger than before, but transparent. A constellation of movement, fur made from drifting dust motes. Balance tilts, she tells me. Kindness decays if left alone. Then she shows me scenes. A child kicking a pigeon, a man tying a fishing hook wrong so it tears instead of holds, a factory draining dye into a river. Each vision burns through me like fever. When I wake, my arms ache until I act. I no longer wait for the command. The compulsion grows faster than the voice. I walk the streets after school, scanning gutters, trash bins, construction sites. I find cages, ropes, snares. I break them all. Every time the metal snaps, the bruises flicker bright and then dim, like exhaling relief. but the light spreads. It crawls up my neck, behind my ears, under my eyelids. When I close my eyes, the world still shines through. Sleep has become impossible. Instead, I drift in half dreams, following the pulse like a beacon. It always leads to the same place, the alley behind the tracks where everything began. The ground there never grew grass again, just dust, always damp, smelling faintly of iron. Each time I visit, I feel smaller, as though the alley is stretching upward. On the wall above the spot I buried mosaic. The shape has formed, not graffiti, not shadow, a stain in the bricks, shaped like a crouched animal. When the moon hits it, the stain shines. I kneel there, whispering the only prayer I know. I'm still trying. The bricks are warm under my palms. Something hums inside them, pleased. The light has begun leaving marks behind me. At school, the long hallways, my footsteps glow faintly for a few seconds before fading. Friends joke about my new shoes. I laugh along. At night, those same steps reappear, tracing my path backward to every creature I helped, every cage I broke, as if the light is cataloging me. I am a walking confession. 2 nights ago, I caught my reflection moving before I did. It tilted its head, curious, feline. When I reached toward the mirror, its hands sprouted claws, not long ones, just enough to catch the light. Almost, it said. The voice wasn't sound. It vibrated in my teeth. I asked, almost what? The reflection blinked. When my eyes opened again, it was gone, and a single word had appeared on the fogged glass. Mercy. I don't know if I'm still human. The bruises no longer hurt. They hum. The purring I once heard outside now lives in my throat. When I breathe, the air vibrates around me. Cats follow me in the street, dozens sometimes, keeping their distance, silent escorts. Dogs bow their heads when I pass. Birds do not startle. It's as if the world of small things has accepted me as one of its own, but the world of people has begun to turn away. My mother avoids my eyes. She says the apartment smells like dust and static. She has started sleeping with the lights on. Last night, she whispered through my door, "Whatever you're bringing home, stop." I wanted to answer that I'm only returning what belongs, but the words lodged behind my teeth, purring instead of speaking. The light grows restless when I ignore it. It wants bigger acts now. Not saving, not feeding, defending. It shows me cruelty, the way hunger shows the mouth. Soon undeniable. I saw a man kick a stray dog outside the gas station. Before I could think, my body moved. I grabbed his wrist mid-swing. His eyes widened. He tried to pull away. The light poured through me, down my arm, into his. He screamed, not in pain but shock. When I let go, a dark paw print spread across his skin, perfectly symmetrical to mine. He stumbled backward, staring at it, then ran. The bruises on my own arm faded slightly, as if some burden had transferred. That night I dreamed of hundreds of those prints glowing across the city, marking the cruel, spreading balance like contagion. I don't think the shadow needs me to help animals anymore. Now it wants me to help itself to keep the equation alive. Every time I sleep, the cat dissolves a little more, until only light remains where fur used to be. When it leans close, I see my own reflection inside its chest, small and folded, glowing like an ember. You are the bruise, it tells me. The world will heal around you. I wake drenched in sweat and moonlight. The air tastes of iron again. My arms are clear for the first time in months. No marks, no glow. For a heartbeat, I think I'm free. Then I see it, the faint amber shimmer crawling under my skin, moving toward my heart. Tonight the alley calls louder than ever. I know it waits there. The stain on the wall has deepened, the outline of the cat clearer now, its eyes 2 dark hollows swallowing the night. I bring the brick I first used, the same one I couldn't throw away. It fits my palm perfectly. The weight feels inevitable. I kneel by the grave and whisper, I understand. The ground shifts. Dos trices. A glow leaks upward, soft and bruised. It touches the brick, then my hand. then climbs my arm in slow pulses. The purr grows deafening. Not outside. Not inside everywhere. The shadow unfolds from the wall one last time. Towering. Immense. Luminous. She circles me once, brushing against my shoulders like smoke. When she stops, her voice fills the world. Now you collect light. The ground opens. Not deep. Just enough to swallow the brick. When it closes again, my arms are unmarked. But I feel the hum settle in my chest. Steady. Endless. I walk home under a sky that flickers between day and night. Street lights pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat. Cats follow, silent, forming a procession. Their eyes gleam amber, mirrors of mine. I don't know where this ends. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe balance isn't a destination but a weight you carry forever. A bruise that glows instead of fades. When I close my eyes now, I see the alley, the brick, the shadow bending over me, and I hear the same low promise in every breath I take. We remember. We forgive. We keep the light. The light inside me has stopped wandering. It's settled now, low behind my ribs, burning with the steadiness of an altar flame. When I breathe, I taste smoke, not the sharp kind that stings, but the soft gray sweetness of something long since forgiven. Everything I touch carries that scent. Clothes, notebooks, skin, ashes become the language of my hands. I used to think fire destroyed. Now I understand it only translates. It turns what was alive into memory fine enough to drift. I started collecting bones without meaning to. Not human, never human small things. Bird wings washed clean by rain, a rabbit's jaw, a fish spine glinting in a ditch. I place them in glass jars on my windowsill. Each one hums faintly. When the sun hits it, as if light remembers shape. Mom asked once why I keep them. I said they help me sleep. She doesn't ask anymore. The apartment smells like burnt paper. She keeps the windows open, even in the cold. Sometimes, before she leaves for work, she looks at me the way one looks at a candle that's burned too low, afraid to blow it out, afraid to watch it go dark on its own. The cats still come, not the same ones each night, but always three. They sit on the fire escape and stare inward, eyes reflecting the bruise glow under my skin. They never make a sound. I've begun leaving bowls of water laced with ash from burned bread. They lap it calmly, tails twitching in unison. When they're done, they bow their heads as if thanking something behind me, not me. The first time I bowed back, the bruises on my arms shivered and the light within flared. A ripple of warmth passed through the floorboards down the hall out into the street. I heard dogs fall silent for blocks. That was the night I understood what devotion really means. Not prayer, not praise, but maintenance, keeping the balance from slipping. Sleep brings no dreams now, only replayed moments and tones of ash, each memory dimmer, edges softened, as though the world is being dusted clean of detail. Faces blur. My own voice, when I try to speak aloud in the morning, carries an echo a half-second late, like another throat remembering what I said. I don't fight it. Fighting feels wrong, like speaking against gravity. Yesterday I followed the pull to the industrial district. The light inside led me there the way hunger leads the lost. Behind a warehouse, I found what it wanted me to find. A pile of charred feathers, a smear of blackened fur. Someone had set fire to a box of kittens, the metal container still warm, the air thick with the chemical rot of cruelty. For the first time in months, the light inside me shook with anger. Not many hours. I dropped to my knees. The smell of gasoline made my eyes burn. I reached into the ash. Underneath, still damp, something moved a paw, twitching once. I lifted it free. One survivor, lungs rasping, skin blistered. The light surged outward through my palms, spilling from me into the creature like breath. The kitten's chest rose. Then again, when it opened its eyes, they glowed the same amber as the cat that made me. It licked my wrist, leaving a streak of soot shaped like a mark of blessing. Then it walked away, without a sound. The air around me cooled instantly, and the bruises turned the color of clean smoke. That night, Mosaic appeared not as light, not as shadow, but as both, flickering, She filled the room from corner to corner, tail curling around the jars of bone. "You have carried enough," she said, "but balance bleeds forward. Others will take your weight." Her voice wasn't rebuke. It was fatigue. Even eternity gets tired. She stepped closer until our foreheads touched. Her fur felt like static and forgiveness. I wanted to ask what she meant, who would take my weight, but the air between us folded inward. When it straightened again, she was gone, and the floor was covered in gray dust. It smelled like rain on stone. The dust doesn't clean away. Every time I sweep, more appears. It clings to the walls in faint paw-shaped prints, as if someone walks beside me, unseen. The light inside is dim to embers. It no longer hums, it breathes. When I exhale, little curls of gray escape my lips, spiraling upward like words too soft to hear. I'm fading, I think, but not dying. More like being translated into the element I've tended. Tonight I burned the notebook. Each page turned quietly, letters lifting like moths into the ceiling. When the last page folded into itself, the flame bent toward me, and from within it, I heard the familiar purr, low, infinite, content. It whispered, not in warning, but in ritual. Ash keeps its promise. The room filled with warmth so heavy I couldn't stand. I knelt, hands over my heart. The light pulsed once slow, final. Then it dispersed, 1,000 motes scattering through the apartment, settling on fur, glass, dust, and air alike. Every object shimmered for a heartbeat, then grew still. Now everything smells of quiet. The cats are gone. The jars no longer hum. Only a thin gray film remains over my skin, soft to the touch, almost warm. When I move, it rises behind me in slow curls. A trail, not of smoke, but of evidence that I ever existed. Mom knocked on my door earlier. She said the house feels lighter. I wanted to tell her she's right. Some weights don't lift, they dissolve. I looked at my hands. No breeze, no glow. Just the faint imprint of a paw and ash across my palm. A reminder that devotion, once learned, never unlearns. I pressed that hand to the wall where Mosaic's shadow once breathed. The print merged into it, and for the first time, the wall purred back. The first morning after the ash settled, I woke to the sound of silence. Not the kind that waits for noise, but the deeper kind. The one that feels alive, thick enough to breathe in, soft enough to carry a memory without breaking it. It filled the apartment the way sunlight used to. Every corner seemed weightless, as if sound had been traded for calm. For a long time, I lay still and listened to the quiet listening back. The cats didn't come that night, or the next, but I could still sense them, not as bodies, but as warmth in the corners, a gentle awareness pressed against the edges of my thoughts. Sometimes the air shifts slightly, as if a tail brushes past. Sometimes a reflection on glass moves when I don't. I've stopped trying to separate what's real from what remembers. I've learned that not all hauntings are intrusions. Some are inheritances. They pass from shadow to shadow, from cruelty to care, until the line between both disappears. The bruises are gone. My skin is pale where they once burned, but if I hold my breath long enough, I can see faint veins glowing beneath, a map of amber threads running toward my heart. I think that's where she lives now, not as punishment, not even as forgiveness, but as continuity. The world balances itself in strange ways. What you destroy doesn't always vanish. Sometimes it moves in, quietly, and teaches you how to live as the echo of what you harmed. I've started working at the shelter downtown. I sweep floors, feed strays, change bandages. The animals trust me too easily. They don't flinch, even when I move too fast. It's like they already know my scent, like I'm part of some older story they've been told. The volunteers call me the Whisperer. I laugh when they do, because they have no idea how true that word is. When I touch an injured paw, I feel the hum, the faint, ancient rhythm of Mosaic's purr, vibrating up through bone and blood. It isn't guidance anymore. It's communion. The apartment has changed. My mother moved out last month. She said the place felt too still. I didn't argue. Stillness is what I wanted. Stillness is where she lives best. Now it's just me, the jars of bone still lined on the windowsill, and the faint shimmer that coats everything when the sun goes down. If I breathe too deeply, the dust rises in shapes, paws, tails, shifting outlines that vanish as soon as I name them. Sometimes I speak to them anyway. I remember, I say. And somewhere, from no direction at all, the silence purrs in agreement. The world outside feels different now. Color muted, sounds distant, as if I'm seeing it through the thin membrane of another body. I don't mind. It's easier this way. Too much noise, and the quiet inside me trembles. The other collectors still pass me sometimes. A glance, a nod, a shared hush. We carry our separate balances like secret prayers. Each of us marked, each of us glowing faintly under the skin, each of us paying back a different cruelty, one kind act at a time. It isn't redemption, it's arithmetic. Last night I dreamed of the alley again, but it was clean this time. The ground dry, the air bright. No shadow, no blood, no sound, only light pooling where the grave used to be. When I looked closer, I saw 3 small prints pressed into the dirt. A mother's, a child's, and one too big to belong to either. Mine. The air trembled once, then folded inward. The prints filled themselves with gold light and vanished. When I woke, the air in my room tasted of rain. Sometimes I wonder if Mosaic ever had a name before I gave her one. If she remembers the alley, the pain, the brick. If the soul of a creature keeps count the way we do. Maybe not. Maybe she doesn't remember being wronged at all. Maybe she only remembers the moment I began to change. Because every time I close my eyes now, I see her not huge, not glowing, just a small cat curled on the end of my bed, breathing evenly, peaceful. When I reach to touch her, my hand passes through, and she doesn't mind. The quiet has weight to it now. I feel it pressing gently on my chest, not to suffocate, but to remind. It hums like the earth before rain, like the moment just before someone forgives you. That's what I've inherited. Not the curse, not the punishment, but the silence left behind. When vengeance is finally full, it isn't mercy, it isn't peace, it's balance, and it's mine to keep. I still talk to the strays when I walk home. They follow for a few blocks, then peel off into the dark, leaving only the echo of their paws. Sometimes one of them meows softly, and the sound blooms through me like a heartbeat. I stop, smile, and whisper back the only prayer I know. We remember. And the night, in all its vast stillness, answers with the faintest sound, the single, satisfied purr that stretches into infinity. The Wells census. The first thing I noticed about the village wasn't the silence, it was the way sound refused to stay. Every noise I made, bootsteps, the rumble of the truck, the thud of the gear case seemed to hit the clay walls and slide straight into the earth, swallowed whole. They said this place had been abandoned after the floods, but that was half a lie. People still lived here quietly, like tenants inside someone else's memory. They watched from doorways, eyes glassy, as if afraid that speaking would make them visible to something listening underground. I'm Simon Reed, environmental engineer, Survey Team 12. My job is to record the chemical stability of the old groundwater system, mostly wells. Nothing mystical, just water, pressure, carbon ratios. The file said Well 3, Black Cypress Village, had been sealed in 1987 after structural concerns. But that wasn't the story the villagers told. They said the well had started counting. The road ended in a field of leaning bamboo. Beyond it, I found the circle of stones rough, hand-cut, blackened by rain. The cover was metal, rust-thick and pitted. When I brushed the mud off, flakes of paint came away in my hand, showing the word census carved underneath. Not a warning, a label, a registry. I logged the coordinates, set up the harness, clipped the flashlight to my vest. The lid groaned when I lifted it, a long, wet sigh that rolled into the dark below. Cold air rushed up, tasting of rust and something older like milk left too long in the Sunday. I dropped a test line. 10, 20, 30 meters. The rope brushed stone, then water. Depth, 32. I wrote it down. Professional, precise. Still, the echo that came back wasn't the one I'd sent. It returned, softer, doubled, like a child repeating what it just learned. 32. That night I slept in the truck outside the field. The villagers had offered a cot in the community hall, but I declined. Too many eyes. Too many stories. Around 2 a.m. the rain stopped, and the air grew sharp. I woke to a sound that didn't belong. Not wind, not frog song. A thin, wet chorus rising from nowhere and everywhere. Crying, high, soft, layered like dozens of throats trying to agree on sorrow. I turned on the recorder out of habit, muttered the date, location, time. Acoustic anomaly, possible air displacement from shaft cavity. Science makes fear manageable. If you can label it, it's smaller. But the crying didn't fade when I spoke. It harmonized. At dawn, I checked the well again. The rope was slick. A thin film of algae clung to the fibers, though it had been dry yesterday. When I leaned over, the reflection of the sky rippled wrong, clouds moving slower than they should, light bending sideways as if seen through glass still full of breath. Something shifted below, not a splash, a shuffle. I told myself it was groundwater pressure equalizing. I told myself a lot of things. Then a voice rose from the dark, clear as radio static, tuned just right. 9. I froze. No hecho followed. Just that single word, perfectly pronounced. I packed my equipment faster than regulation allowed. Back in the truck, I played the recording. Rain, wind. My breathing, then that same syllable. Lo. Deliberate. 9. I replayed it, slowed it, analyzed frequency, pitched 260 hertzes, human range, juvenile tone. Impossible, I noted. The well had been sealed since 1987. The report will call it acoustic contamination, but in the logbook margin, in handwriting I barely recognized, I'd already written one more word, counting. That night, the crying returned. Closer, wetter, threaded through with numbers whispered between sobs. 9, 10, 11. Each word landed like a drop into the pit of my stomach. I tried to drown it with the engine, with the radio, but every channel played the same thing. A hollow hum, like breath, echoing down a long throat of stone. I shut everything off. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was expectant, waiting for me to answer. I didn't, but I could feel it counting again. Softly, patiently, as if I'd already joined the list. I didn't sleep. Not truly. I drifted on the edge of wakefulness, where thoughts dissolve into sound. That's where it began to count again. Not from 9 this time. From 1. 1, 2, 3. Each number fell softly, the way a child might count buttons on a sleeve. The voice was gentle, almost soothing, until I realized it wasn't stopping. 4, 5, 6. I sat up in the truck, pulse hammering, the windows fogged with my breath. But the sound wasn't inside. It came from the ground itself, humming through the frame of the vehicle like a buried metronome. Every number vibrated in my chest. When I whispered, "Who's there?" the counting paused, just long enough for me to believe it would stop. Then a new voice joined in, smaller, younger, overlapping the first, as if trying to catch up. 7, 8. By the time dawn scraped its colorless light across the horizon, the voices had reached 32, the same number of meters down to the waterline. Then silence, perfect bottomless silence. I told myself I'd hallucinated. Lack of rest, fatigue, paranoia, the textbook list of explanations. Still, when I opened the field log, my hand trembled enough to smear the ink. I wrote, possible subsurface resonance unverified. But beneath that, without realizing, I wrote another line in smaller, uneven script. Do not look in the water again. By noon, Curiosity began gnawing. Profession de main. Proof. Fear hates unfinished measurements. I went back. The villagers watched from their porches again. One woman, ancient and bent like a question mark, held up a finger to her lips when I passed, not warning, pleading. Her eyes followed me, all the way down the path. The well sat exactly as I'd left it, except for the rope. It had been coiled neatly on top of the lid. Someone or something had wound it into a perfect spiral. Each loop glistened faintly, as if oiled. I kneed. The metal cover was cold against my palms. I listened. At first, only the wind. Then faintly, beneath it, one. The whisper crawled up the inside of the well like breath through a flute. Then another voice joined, slightly higher. Two. Then another. Three. Each syllable overlapping, layering until the sound became a wet drone of numbers, echoing off the stone walls below. The rational part of me cataloged possibilities. Water resonance, trapped air, trick of wind. But the rest of me, the part that still dreams, began to count with them. Without meaning to, I whispered. 4. The sound stopped instantly. Something shifted in the dark. Not the splash of water heavier. A slow drag, like fingers finding grip on slick stone. The metallic tang of the air deepened. The hair on my arms rose. Then the voice returned. Close. So close it might have been right beside my ear. 5. The echo that followed wasn't from below. It came from behind me. I turned. No one. Just the field, bending under wind that wasn't moving. That evening I sealed the well again, bolted it down, wrote a false report. Cavity unstable, recommend permanent closure. Then I drove out of the village without saying goodbye. But the counting didn't stay behind. It traveled with me, in the hum of the tires, in the rhythm of my own heartbeat. Every time the engine shifted gears, the sound seemed to sync perfectly, whispering under the noise. 6. Seum. When I turned on the radio to drown it, the static spoke back. Not words, just that same awful cadence disguised as interference. 8. 9. I pulled over, shut everything off, sat breathing into my hands until I stopped shaking. The world outside was still, but inside the stillness, something exhaled. And then faintly, 10. That night, I dreamed of the well, but it wasn't a hole in the ground anymore. It was a mouth. The stones had teeth, slick and pale. The rope I'd left behind dangled like a tongue. At the bottom, light pulsed like the glow of eyes beneath water. Children's faces floated just below the surface. Not decomposed, not alive, just suspended, their mouths moving in perfect unison, counting 11, 12. When they reached 32, the water bulged upward, and from it rose a hand. Small, blistered, nails worn down to nothing. It held a sheet of paper, dripping, folded neatly. The ink ran, but I could still read the last word written there. Next, when the hand dropped it, I reached out, without thinking. The paper disintegrated in my grasp, but the letters burned onto my skin, black and wet, as if written from inside the flesh. I woke, screaming. The smell of damp earth filled the room. My hands were clean, but when I looked in the mirror, my reflection's lips were moving, silently finishing the count. 13. I haven't been back to the site since. The department closed the file, citing safety hazards. But every night, without fail, the voices returned faint, patient, multiplying. Last night there were 14. Tonight, I hear 15. They never skip a number. They never start over. They only continue, as if the well were taking attendance, not of the dead, but of those who've listened. And I'm starting to understand. Each time I hear them, each time I count, I add another mark to the record below. The list arrived 3 days after I left the village. No return address, no postage stamp, just a damp envelope. The paper swollen at the corners, smelling faintly of iron and stagnant water. I almost threw it away. Almost. But curiosity is a parasite that eats through sense. So I opened it. Inside was a single page. handwritten in blue ink that had bled into the paper, as though someone had tried to write underwater. Most of the names were unreadable, letters warped into long blue veins, but a few were clear enough to make my throat tighten. Girls' names, young ones, Ava, Margaret, Ruth, and at the bottom, written more firmly, as if the pen had pressed into the paper from beneath instead of above, was my own, Simon Reed. Beneath it, one word, next. I laughed, a dry, desperate laugh that didn't sound human. It's a trick, I thought. Someone in that cursed village trying to scare me, to keep me away. But when I set the letter down, the surface of my desk was wet, not damp wet, as if the paper had just been lifted out of water. Small droplets slid across the grain of the wood, then disappeared before they reached the edge. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, listening for numbers. They came just before dawn. 16, a pause, 17, and then the sound of dripping water, steady, measured, like the beat of a metronome submerged in mud. By the fourth night, the sound had moved inside the walls. It dripped in the pipes, in the radiator, in the empty glass by my bed. Every drop seemed to echo. I taped the letter shut in a plastic bag, stuffed it in the back of the freezer, as if cold could freeze consequence. For a while, the noise softened. I convinced myself it was over. Then, at exactly 3:12 a.m., my phone began to vibrate on the nightstand. No caller ID, no sound, just the vibration, continuous, unrelenting. When I picked it up, there was no voice, only a hollow, watery static. Then, faintly beneath it, 8:10, the line went dead. When I checked the screen, the call log showed 032, 32 seconds, always 32. By morning, the air in the apartment felt wrong, heavy, humid, like the breath of something that shouldn't have lungs. I showered to wash it off, but the water came out colder than it should have been. When I wiped the steam from the mirror, the fog cleared only halfway, and written in the cleared space were names, the same ones from the letter, each etched into condensation. At the bottom, just beneath Mina, was another word that hadn't been there before, counting. I tried to call headquarters that afternoon, tried to file a follow-up to report possible tampering of government property, but when I pulled the folder from the glove box, every document was soaked through, not wrinkled, soaked. Drops fell onto my lap as I flipped through the pages. The ink ran in, streaks down the forms, gathering at the bottom like veins. On the last page, a single line remained intact. Well, #3 Black Cypress Village census incomplete. I decided to go back. It wasn't bravery. It was compulsion, the kind that feels like gravity when you try to fight it. By dusk, I was standing before the same circle of stones. The metal cover gleamed faintly, though the sky was clouded. It looked cleaner than before. Too clean. Someone had wiped it down. When I lifted it, no rust flaked off this time. Instead, droplets clung to the rim, perfect, trembling, as if the well had been sweating in anticipation. I tied the rope again, even though I didn't remember bringing one. It was already coiled at the site, still damp, like it had just been pulled out. Halfway through lowering the sensor, the line jerked. Not a snag, something gripped it. I froze. The tension on the rope pulsed. Once, twice, like a heartbeat beneath the surface. Then the line went slack. I pulled it up. The sensor was gone. In its place, tied neatly to the end of the rope, was another page. The same paper as before. The same blue ink. Only this time, there were fewer names, as if the list was erasing itself one by one. The top names were crossed out in thick, wet strokes. Mine had moved up. Above it, another name freshly written. Thomas Rake. Inspector. That was my supervisor. He'd signed off on the false report. My stomach turned cold. The page began to drip again, each droplet falling into the well and echoing back louder than the last. Ninatin. I dropped the list and ran. Didn't bother to replace the cover. The counting followed me into the truck, muffled, but present, a pulse that matched the rhythm of the wipers, the flash of the lights, my heartbeat. When I reached the main road, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. It was a photograph. The well, seen from above. In the center of the frame, something white floated on the surface. A piece of paper. The image quality was grainy, but I could still make out what it said. 20. I threw the phone out the window. It landed somewhere in the ditch. Still glowing. The sound didn't stop. Even with the engine roaring, I could hear it under everything. Soft, patient, endless. 21, 22. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles cracked, but the counting didn't fade. It was inside now, threaded through every sound, every silence. A rhythm the world refused to forget. I know what it wants. It's a list that can never stay dry. Names written in water, bleeding through time until everyone who listens becomes a number. And every time I think of the well, every time I tell this story, the voices pick up where they left off. 23. The counting stopped last night. Not faded. Not gone, just paused. The way a held breath pauses before a scream. I knew better than to celebrate. Silence. Here is only the well inhaling. By morning, I was shaking. Not from fear exactly, something deeper, like my body had begun to remember drowning. Every movement felt heavy, delayed, as if my limbs were working through water that wasn't there. I dreamed I was underwater again, though I don't remember ever falling in. The surface above me rippled faintly, showing a pale disk of light that might have been the moon or an open eye. Voices bubbled all around, rising through the dark like air pockets breaking in reverse. Simon, Simon, count with us. When I tried to swim upward, hands brushed my legs small, cold, endless hands pulling, not violently but insistently. A child's patience. They didn't want to hurt me. They wanted me to stay until I finished the list. When I woke, my sheets were damp. The air tasted metallic. And in the corner of the room, puddles. Perfect circles of clear water, unconnected to any leak. Each one rippled as if stirred by invisible breath. The next day I drove north. I don't remember deciding to. The car just followed the pull. Every turn led me closer to the sound. That impossible, subterranean resonance that now hummed through the tires, through my bones. By dusk, the sign appeared. Black Cypress Village, keep out. The letters were warped, with rust. Someone had painted over them in red. Census closed. I parked by the field. The bamboo was gone now, reduced to brittle stumps. The air smelled burnt, though the soil was wet. The well stood open. No lead, no rope, just the circle of stones, cleaner than I'd ever seen them polished, glistening, waiting, and on the edge, a single object, a clipboard, government issue. My department's logo still visible under the water stains, pages clipped to it, clinging in the breeze. The first line read, Environmental Field Log Ongoing Census. Below it, my own handwriting, total confirmed, 32. And beneath that, in darker ink that hadn't come from any pen I owned, a new line had appeared. Trisdeshimt, Trisimon Reed. I don't remember kneeling, but I must have, because suddenly the edge of the well was against my ribs. My reflection looked wrong. Too pale, too deep, eyes distorted by the water's trembling surface. Then it blinked. Not me. It. The reflection smiled faintly, and a second reflection appeared beside it. A child's face. Featureless, smooth as river stone. Its mouth opened, and the sound that rose was a whisper, so layered it became a vibration in the air. 33. The number hung there, stretching time thin. The water stirred. Shapes gathered just beneath it, blurring into one another. Faces, shoulders, small torsos drifting in the dark. The water wasn't reflecting the sky anymore, it was reflecting upward, as if I were the one submerged, and they were the ones watching. I staggered back, but my feet slipped in the mud. The earth was soft, freshly turned, as if someone had dug there recently. When my hands pressed into it for balance, something shifted beneath the surface, a texture both smooth and wrong. I pulled away. The tips of my fingers came up smeared with ink, not soil. Blue ink, bleeding through the cracks of my skin. The whispering started again, louder this time, but not from the well, from the pages. The list. I watched as water pooled around the clipboard's edges, darkening the paper, making the letters move. Names rose like bubbles through the ink, rearranging themselves into new lines, then dissolving. At the bottom, my own name glowed faintly before sliding down the page, sinking into the water below. The voices followed, repeating the descent. 34. 35. I ran. I didn't stop until the village disappeared behind the trees. The counting followed anyway, through the soil, through the air, through me. At a motel an hour away, I tried to write a statement. Every word bled through the page before I could finish it. Ink spreading like veins, numbers forming without my hand moving. I tore the sheet out. Another appeared beneath it. Blank, already damp. The paper began to sweat. I realized then that the census wasn't about bodies or souls. It wasn't a record of who had died. It was a record of who had heard. Every new witness became another number in the sequence, their memory sinking down like a pebble tossed into an endless, remembering well. I don't go near water anymore. Not puddles, not sinks, not rain. Each droplet hums faintly now, a microcosm of the same depth. If I listen too long, the counting resumes. 36, 37. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I can still see the list floating, unfolding like skin underwater. The names stretch out into the dark until they become shapes, until shapes become mouths, until mouths become the sound itself. The well is everywhere now, everywhere that remembers silence. It doesn't need stones or ropes or lids. It only needs listeners. I've been hearing static through the pipes again. It sounds almost like rain until the rhythm turns precise, metered, deliberate. I press my ear to the wall. 38, 39, a pause, and then, softly, as if inches from the other side of the plaster. Next, the last number I heard was 41. Then the counting began again back to 1, but slower this time, deliberate, patient, like the voice had all the time in the world. Maybe it does. I haven't left this room in days. The motel wallpaper has bubbled with moisture, the kind that never quite dries no matter how long the heater runs. The air smells of copper and limestone, well water. Always well water. There's a damp stain spreading across the carpet near the vent. Every hour or so, I watch it pulse. If I lean close enough, I can hear it breathe. I keep thinking about the number 32, the depth, the seconds, the length of that last phone call. The number every voice pauses on before saying next. I think that's when it listens, when it decides whether you belong above or below. Yesterday I tried to call headquarters again. No one answered. The line clicked open after the 5th ring, and a voice spoke softly. A child's voice, careful and polite. Census Department. Counting, please hold. Then silence. Except it wasn't silence. It was dripping. 32 drops. Perfectly spaced, before the call disconnected itself. When I looked at my reflection in the black screen, water streaked down my cheeks like sweat, but I hadn't been crying. Not yet. At night the walls turned transparent, or maybe I've stopped seeing them altogether. Behind the plaster, movement. Small figures walking in circles, their outlines blurred as though viewed through ripples. I count them without wanting to. Each pass they make adds a number to the list forming behind my eyes. 14, 15. When they reach 32, everything stops. Even the air holds its breath. Then they all turn to face me at once. Dozens of eyeless faces, mouths open, whispering something that doesn't reach my ears. It's not language, it's the sound of names dissolving underwater. I wake up gasping, my lungs filled with the taste of rust. I've started to see writing on the mirror again. It appears only when the room fogs, as if condensation is ink from another world seeping through. This morning it said We only count what listens. The words faded as I read them, replaced by numbers climbing slowly upward. When they reached 32, the surface of the glass quivered, and my reflection mouthed a number ahead of me. 33. I didn't say it, but the echo did, and then it smiled. The news plays in the background sometimes. Reports of missing surveyors, collapsed wells, children in nearby towns claiming they hear someone counting from drains at night. Every voice they record says the same thing. A different accent, a different tone, but always the same rhythm. 32 seconds apart. I've begun recording them, layering the audio files. When played together, they harmonize perfectly. A chorus, forming a single sustained note just below the range of speech. If you listen long enough, the note breaks into syllables. If you listen longer, it says your name. I think I understand now. The census isn't about water or death. It's about acknowledgement, the forgotten demand inventory. They measure attention, not existence. Each listener is another depth. Each repetition, another meter downward. The well doesn't take you by force. It waits until you agree to hear. That's what the 30-second echo is. A gap between voices, an invitation disguised as breath. Once you fill it with your own sound, you belong to the count. I tried to fight it. I sealed every drain, unplugged every appliance, poured concrete into the bathtub. Still, the counting found me. It came through the hum of the refrigerator, through the vibration of the light bulb filament, through the hollow of my throat when I swallowed. Tonight I realized it doesn't need the world at all anymore. It has me. There are new puddles under the door. They reflect light that isn't in the room. I think the well has finally reached the surface. Or maybe I've sunk low enough to meet it halfway. I hear it now, just outside. Not rain, not footsteps. The soft slosh of something dragging itself up the stairs, leaving wet prints shaped like small open hands. They stop outside my door. 32 seconds of quiet. Then a knock. 3 times. Polite, rhythmic. Sensus. A voice says, "May we update our record?" I sit here, pen shaking, tape still rolling. The air smells like wet stone and childhood nightmares. I can feel the floor vibrating with the weight of the number rising beneath me. The voice speaks again. Closer now, right at the keyhole. 32, 33. I should stop listening. I should. But when I whisper the next number under my breath, the sound of water fills the room, and the world folds in on itself, and I realize the echo was never coming from the well. It was coming from inside my mouth. 34. If you can hear this, if the recording hasn't drowned, don't replay it. Don't count along. Because every repetition deepens the list, and the well learns your voice by the sound of your fear. You have 32 seconds before it begins again. That's all the silence it needs to remember you. 35. The sweet deception. They say taste is the fastest way back to memory. A single square of chocolate can take you anywhere. Back to childhood, to comfort, to sin. For me, it takes me to her, Anya, my best friend. Or, at least, the person who used to be that. We were inseparable once, both working the same internship downtown. She was sunlight, perfect hair, perfect posture, the kind of laugh that made people listen. I was the shadow, beside her, quieter, trying too hard. When she ate chocolate, she'd close her eyes, hum softly, as if the world stopped for her. It's the small things, she'd say, the tiny pleasures that make life worth the noise. I remember that line because it was the last thing she said to me before she disappeared. It began months earlier, at Kyle's birthday party. He was her boyfriend, tall, careless, charming in the way that makes you forgive small cruelties. He offered me a drink, then another, and when Anya laughed at something across the room, he looked at me instead of her. That was all it took, one glance that lingered a moment too long. Later, he handed me a bar of chocolate wrapped in gold foil. Imported. Expensive. He said, "You'll like this. It tastes like secrets." I didn't eat it then. Not yet, but I kept it. When Anya vanished 2 months later, I found myself unwrapping that same bar. The sound was delicate paper tearing, foil sighing, a symphony of guilt. It melted instantly on my tongue. Rich, dark, perfect, and I cried for reasons I didn't understand. The next morning, a small package waited on my doorstep. No name, no notch, just another chocolate bar, identical to the first. The weeks that followed blurred into sweetness and shame. Each day brought another bar, different wrapping, same perfection. I ate them all. I told myself they were gifts from someone who cared, that maybe Kyle felt sorry for me, that maybe he needed company too. But then I saw my reflection, the softness around my jaw, the dullness in my eyes. The chocolate had become a mirror, and it was showing me someone I didn't want to know. Still, I couldn't stop, because every bite whispered her name. Every taste said, remember. It was Kyle who finally broke the silence. A message, sudden and simple. You still like sweets, right? I stared at the screen, heart thudding, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Then another message arrived. She left you something. Check your porch. I ran to the door. The air smelled of sugar and rain. On the step, another box. Inside, a dozen bars of chocolate, each labeled in neat handwriting, each one with a single word carved into the foil. Envy, lies, hunger, you. That night, I dreamt of Anya sitting on my kitchen counter, barefoot, her skin pale and waxy under the dim light. She was eating a bar of chocolate. Slowly, methodically, each bite left a smudge of darkness at the corner of her mouth. She looked at me with hollow eyes and smiled. You took my life. I'll take your appetite. When I woke, the taste of chocolate still coated my tongue, and the box was empty. I told myself I'd stop. The morning after that dream, I threw away everything, the wrappers, the boxes, the half-eaten bars. I scrubbed the countertops until my hands smelled of bleach instead of sugar. For a few hours, I almost believed it was over. But by evening, the air had changed. Sweet, thick, faintly floral. It clung to the walls like perfume. I opened every window, but the scent wouldn't leave. Then I saw it. A small square box on the windowsill, wrapped in deep brown paper and tied with a satin ribbon. It hadn't been there when I woke up. I knew I shouldn't touch it, but curiosity and craving have the same heartbeat. The ribbon slid off too easily, the sound like silk against skin. Inside, a single chocolate sat in the center, shaped like a heart, smooth and shining. There was a note beneath it, written in narrow, almost delicate handwriting. You never had to compete. You just had to taste. I told myself I wouldn't eat it. But the scent was intoxicating cocoa and something else, faintly metallic, like rain on copper pipes. I took a bite. It melted instantly, flooding my mouth with warmth so intense it made me dizzy. The flavor was strange, sweet at first, then bitter, then sweet again, like guilt pretending to be love. By the time I swallowed, tears were streaming down my face. I didn't even know why. That night, I dreamed again. Anya sat across from me at our old cafe table. The sunlight through the window was too bright, turning her hair to ribbons of light. She was thinner than I remembered, her eyes dull, her smile small and perfect. She was unwrapping a bar of chocolate slowly, carefully, every motion deliberate. The sound filled the dream, the crinkle of paper, the sigh of foil. She looked up at me. You shouldn't have taken him, she said softly, but you did. So now, you'll take this. Then she pushed the bar toward me. It was already half-eaten. Her teeth marks were clear, pressed deep into the surface. Eat, she said. That's how you say sorry. I woke with something heavy in my throat, the taste of sweetness and blood mixed together. When I ran to the sink, I vomited. Dark streaks swirled down the drain, thick and glossy. They smelled like chocolate. In the mirror, my lips were stained brown. My skin looked flushed, fevered, my pupils wide, and just behind my reflection, in the corner of the room, the box sat open again, full, every piece perfectly shaped, as if nothing had been touched. The next few days blurred. Every time I tried to leave the apartment, the scent followed. Soft, intoxicating, maddening. I started seeing wrappers in my bag, my coat pockets, places I hadn't been since before Anya vanished. When I tried to throw them out, they returned. One morning, I woke to find them arranged in a circle around my bed. 12 wrappers, each one with a word written on the inside foil in melted chocolate. Sweet, guilty, always. The last one read, "Still hungry?" I stopped answering calls. Even Kyle's name on the screen made my stomach twist. He kept messaging, short, sharp sentences that felt more like reminders than conversations. "You're different now. She'd be proud. Don't waste what she left you." Every message made the craving worse. I started biting my nails just to taste something bitter, but nothing helped. Then, one night, I heard it, the faintest crinkle of foil, coming from the kitchen. I turned off the lights and listened. Again, that delicate, paper-tearing sound, slow, patient, as if someone was unwrapping something in the dark. Inch by inch, I whispered, "Anya?" No answer, just a soft giggle, a sound I'd once loved. Then the smell hit warm cocoa and sugar. I found myself walking toward it before I could stop. On the counter sat another chocolate, half unwrapped, waiting. The foil trembled slightly, as if breathing. I don't remember eating it, but I remember the warmth afterward, a heat that spread from my stomach to my chest, to my throat, to my mind. And then, for the first time in weeks, I felt peace. The next morning, the mirror told a different story. My cheeks were fuller, my skin slick, my eyes ringed with dark sweetness. When I smiled, something about it felt unfamiliar, too wide, too indulgent. But I didn't care, because beneath my skin, I could still feel the warmth of her voice. "Good girl, don't waste what I gave you." And from somewhere deep inside, I heard the faint rustle of foil, not in the room, but in me, like a gift that would never stop melting. I used to love the taste of chocolate. Now, it tastes like grief left out in the sun too long. By the third week, everything I ate was sweet, whether I wanted it to be or not. The taste coated my tongue, followed me into sleep. It clung to my teeth like guilt. Even water tasted like sugar. Even air. I woke up one morning to find ants crawling along the edge of my bed. Tiny black dots, threading across the sheets toward the nightstand. There, resting on a napkin, was another piece of chocolate, perfectly square, shining faintly, as though it had been polished. I didn't remember putting it there, but I wasn't surprised. That was the worst part. The horror had turned casual. Every new offering felt like the next step in a routine I no longer questioned. I picked it up, and for a moment I swore it was pulsing faintly in my palm. Soft warmth, like the beat of a living heart. I threw it against the wall. It hit with a wet smack and left a dark stain that spread slowly downward, glistening. When I looked closer, the stain had shape, a mouth, slightly open, as if whispering something to me. That night, Kyle called again. I didn't answer. His voice spilled from the voicemail anyway. "She forgave you, Jenna. You should thank her. You're becoming her again. She'd like that." The message ended with a sound that didn't belong on a phone line. A wet chewing, faint but rhythmic, followed by a sigh, like satisfaction. Sleep became a punishment. I started hearing the rapping before I closed my eyes. Foil crackling from the closet, paper tearing from under the bed. The refrigerator door opening by itself at 3 a.m., then closing softly, as if something inside had just been fed. Once, I caught my reflection chewing even though my mouth was still. The mirror, Jenna smiled through a mouthful of dark crumbs. When I turned away, I could still hear her swallow. I called the police 2 nights later, pretending to report a break-in. When they arrived, there was nothing unusual. No chocolates, no boxes, no smell, just an ordinary apartment, too clean, too still. The officers left after 5 minutes. As the door closed, one of them said under his breath, "Sweet smell. She must bake a lot." I didn't correct him. The cravings came back that night, stronger than ever. I tried everything: salt, vinegar, burning the tip of my tongue with hot coffee. But the sweetness always returned. It lived beneath my taste buds now, beneath the nerves themselves. Every heartbeat brought another wave of sugar. Every breath tasted like cocoa and copper. When I finally broke, it wasn't dramatic. No voice, no ghost, just exhaustion. I went to the fridge and opened the bottom drawer. A dozen bars sat there, wrapped in red foil this time, glimmering faintly under the light. They weren't mine, but they were waiting. I ate one, then another, until I couldn't tell where hunger ended and obedience began. After the seventh, I saw movement in the corner of my eye, something pale, swaying, rhythmic. Anya, standing in the doorway, her silhouette thin as a breath. Her face was unreadable, her eyes too wide. Chocolate smeared her lips like lipstick. She was holding one of the red-wrapped bars. "You wanted what I had," she said, voice slow, deliberate. "Now you'll have all of it." Her mouth stretched into an impossible smile, and for a split second, it wasn't teeth I saw. It was little, perfect chocolate squares, stacked row after row, melting as she spoke. She stepped forward. Every footfall left a dark print on the floor. Not blood syrup. Thick, shiny, sweet. I wanted to run. I didn't, because something in me still craved her approval. When she raised her hand, offering another piece, I opened my mouth without meaning to. The taste this time was wrong. It was sour, metallic, like licking a battery through honey. My throat burned as I swallowed. Tears blurred my vision, but I couldn't stop, because beneath the pain was a deeper sweetness, a promise that if I just took one more bite, it would all make sense. I woke up on the kitchen floor. Chocolate wrappers stuck to my skin, melted into my hair. My hands were stained dark. My nails cracked. When I tried to stand, something heavy rolled out from under me. It was my phone. A new message from Kyle. "You did it. She's back. You can rest now." Attached was a photo. It showed a girl sitting at my kitchen table, hair brushed, posture perfect, hands folded neatly. But it wasn't me. It was Anya, smiling, eating. And in front of her, a single half-eaten bar of chocolate, shaped like a mouth. When I looked down at my hands, they were trembling uncontrollably. I tried to scream, but my tongue felt wrong. Thick, heavy. When I reached up and touched it, my fingertips came away brown. It wasn't blood. It wasn't bile. It was chocolate. And it was still warm. The mirror doesn't show me anymore. It shows her, Anya, sitting perfectly still, smiling faintly, as if she's waiting for me to realize something that's already too late. She moves when I don't, breathes when I try not to, and when she blinks I can hear it, the faint crackle of foil bending inward, sealing itself around the air. I stopped eating days ago, or at least, I think I did, but every time I wake, there's chocolate under my nails, bits of it in my teeth. The wrappers pile up no matter how many I throw away. They appear folded inside my pillowcases, tucked into my shoes, pressed between the pages of old notebooks. Every one of them smells faintly of her perfume, lavender and sugar. It's the scent of guilt, pretending to be love. Kyle hasn't called again, but I see his name everywhere, on billboards, receipts, even in my dreams, like the world is whispering him through chocolate dust. Last night I dreamed we were at Anya's funeral. The coffin was white. When I leaned close, the air smelled of cocoa. I touched her hand. It was soft and sticky. When I pulled away, my fingertips were brown. Kyle stood behind me, whispering, "She wanted you to have it." He reached into the coffin and lifted something from her chest. It looked like her heart, but it was too glossy, too neat. A perfect piece of chocolate. He pressed it into my palm. It pulsed once, then melted. I woke up chewing. The next morning, I went to the kitchen and tore apart every cabinet, every drawer. I wanted to find the source, to see where it all came from. Instead, I found nothing but sweetness, chocolate crumbs inside salt containers, cocoa dust coating the stove, a jar of sugar that, when opened, released the faint sound of a woman humming. It was her lullaby, the one she used to sing when we worked late together, half as a joke, half as comfort. A spoon of sugar keeps the heart at bay. And I slammed the jar shut, but the song didn't stop. It just moved to the air vent, the walls, the pipes, everywhere. That evening, I received a small box in the mail. No return address, no markings. Inside, a single chocolate, shaped like a tear. The note beneath it read, "You've taken everything, Jenna. Now take me." I dropped it on the floor and backed away. But even as it hit the tile, I could hear it sigh, as if relieved to finally be home. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the sound, the soft breathing sound that wouldn't stop. Or maybe it was that awful sweetness that filled the room, till I couldn't tell where it ended. And I began. I picked it up. It was warm, almost hot. The surface shimmered like skin under candlelight. I pressed it to my lips, and for the briefest moment, I heard Anya whisper inside me, "Good girl, finish what you started." I bit down. The taste was different this time. No sugar, no sweetness, only bitterness, thick, choking, endless. It burned the back of my throat, spreading through me like smoke. I felt something rise, a heat, a pulse, a memory that wasn't mine. Her laugh, her pain, the cold of bathwater, the scent of perfume, the slow dissolving of pills in a glass. I was reliving her death, through taste, through hunger, through the devouring gift she'd left me. I fell to my knees, hands gripping the counter, and when I looked up, my reflection wasn't smiling anymore. It was watching, waiting, and behind it stood Kyle. His eyes were dark, empty. He didn't move. He didn't need to, because he was already part of it. The sweetness that kills, the guilt that feeds, the loop that never ends. I think I understand now. Anya didn't want revenge. She wanted continuation. The chocolate isn't punishment, it's transmission. Her sorrow, her envy, her need to be tasted, to be remembered in every mouth that takes her in. And now, she lives in me. I don't need the boxes anymore. The sweetness grows on its own now, seeping from my pores, pooling in my hands. When I sleep, I dream of factories, endless corridors of silver wrappers, machines whispering names instead of serial numbers. Each bar bears a single word, Jenna. When I wake, I can still taste them melting on my tongue. Someone knocked on my door an hour ago. A neighbor, I think. She said she smelled something wonderful. She asked if I was baking. I told her yes, because it's easier than the truth. I gave her one of the bars, the newest one, still warm. She smiled, thanked me, and unwrapped it before she left. The last thing I heard was the sound of foil bending open, and her voice, soft and dreamy. Sweet. Now I wait, because the craving always finds the next mouth, and the sweetness never dies. It just changes shape, changes name, and when she starts tasting it, Anya will finally rest, because someone else will carry her now, through the sugar, through the guilt, through the hunger, and I'll be free. I think it's been 21 days since the last delivery, or maybe that's what I want to believe. Time doesn't pass here the same way anymore. Every hour has the flavor of something I can't name, bitter, then sweet, then gone. I've stopped keeping track, but I know this much. The apartment still smells like chocolate. Even when I strip the paint off the walls, it seeps through the plaster. Soft, sugary, suffocating. The scent of memory, trying not to fade. Last night, I dreamt of Anya again. We were sitting in her old kitchen, the one with the cracked window and the crooked spice rack. She was humming softly, rolling something between her fingers, a truffle, round, perfect dark. When she saw me, she smiled, that same kind, infuriating smile that used to make me forgive her for everything. It's funny, she said. You thought love was about taking, but it's really about taste. She leaned across the table, pressed the truffle to my lips. It melted before I could bite, and she whispered, "Now, you'll remember for both of us." I woke up with something heavy in my mouth. When I spat into my palm, it wasn't chocolate. It was a small, round button, brown, slick, carved with a single letter, A. The letter dissolved before my eyes, leaving a faint, sticky sweetness on my skin. That's when I realized I wasn't dreaming her anymore. She was dreaming through me. I tried leaving the apartment, packed a bag, threw on a coat, stepped out into the hallway, but the air outside was colder, flatter, flavorless. The moment I crossed the threshold, my stomach twisted. My tongue went dry. It was as if the world beyond had no taste at all, and that absence terrified me more than any haunting could. I came back inside, closed the door. The sweetness returned immediately, like breath after drowning. Maybe that's what addiction is. A haunted house built inside the body. The neighborhood children have started leaving notes on my doorstep. Drawings of candy, hearts, smiling faces. I think they smell at the sugar that seeps through the cracks at night. Sometimes I hear them whisper outside, arguing about who gets to knock first. Yesterday, I heard a small voice say, "She's the chocolate lady." I laughed until I cried, because that's what Anya used to call herself when she baked. And now it's me. The mirror has become kinder lately, or maybe just more honest. My skin glows faintly now, the way caramel does when it's about to burn. My eyes look soft, syrupy, endless. When I smile, I see her smile back. There's no separation anymore, no reflection, no ghost, just one mouth shared. I whisper to her sometimes, to the sweetness in the glass, "Is this what you wanted?" She never answers in words, just a soft crackle, the sound of foil opening somewhere behind me. Tonight, there was another knock, gentle, patient. When I opened the door, a young woman stood there, one of the neighbors, maybe 20, holding a small box. "I found this outside," she said. "Someone left it with your name." I didn't have to open it to know. The smell filled the corridor, warm and dark. Still, I lifted the lid. Inside, 12 truffles, lined neatly like jewels, each one marked with a letter. R-E-M-E-M-B-E-R-M-E. Remember me. The girl smiled nervously. "Are they homemade?" she asked. I nodded, because it was easier than the truth. "Would you like one?" I asked. I watched her hesitate, then take one delicately, as if politeness could protect her. She bit into it. The chocolate cracked softly. Her pupils widened. "Oh," she breathed. "That's really good." I smiled. "Thank you," I said. "It's an old recipe, passed down." She left soon after, still licking her lips, and I knew, as the door closed, that it had begun again. A das Dessert, a memory transferred, a sweetness that remembers everything. There's no guilt anymore, no fear, just flavor, deep, endless, echoing through every mouth that tastes it. If you ever find a piece of chocolate with no label, wrapped in gold foil that feels too warm and smells faintly of lavender and rain, I don't eat it, because the sweetness doesn't forget. It just waits, and when it melts on your tongue, you'll remember me too, and her, and everyone before. The identity swap. There was always something off about Leah's eyes when she looked at me. Not anger exactly, something quieter. A calculation, like she was trying to solve me. We met as dorm roommates in our second year. I was the art student who liked silence, and she was the kind of girl who could fill a room with noise just by existing. Leah wasn't beautiful, at least not by the world's standards. Skin uneven, hair dull, smile strained at the edges. But she studied people with a kind of hunger that made you feel seen too closely. She used to say my face was cinematic, that the little burn scar on my left cheek made me real. I told her it just made me me. She'd smile and say, "Exactly. It started with small things." My perfume missing, my scarf gone from the rack, then reappearing the next day, faintly smelling of cigarettes and sweat that weren't mine. She started dressing like me too. Zama denim jacket, Zama lipstick tone. When I joked about it, she laughed too loud, too sharp, and said, "I just admire your style, Maya. Isn't imitation the sincerest form of flattery?" I told her I didn't mind, but I did. Because admiration has a smell, and hers smelled like obsession. By late November, I began feeling strange at night, sleepier than usual, like my body was giving up on consciousness before my mind was ready. I blamed the medication from the campus doctor something mild for my nerves, or so they said, but it didn't explain the dreams. They all began the same way. A soft dripping sound, the smell of disinfectant, and a weight on my chest. In the dream, I couldn't open my eyes, but I could feel someone leaning over me, warm breath, the faint rustle of latex gloves. Once, I thought I heard Leah's voice whispering, "Just relax, pretty girl. It's only fair." I told myself it was stress, but every morning, the scar on my cheek itched like something new had touched it. Then came the night. I stayed awake. I faked my usual exhaustion, letting my body go limp on the mattress. The dorm was dark, except for the faint blue of Leah's desk lamp. I heard her moving quietly, drawer opening, something glass clinking. Then a smell hit me. Sweet, chemical, and metallic all at once. Through half-closed eyes, I saw her approach my bed, holding a small jar filled with something thick and gray. It shimmered like oil. She dipped her fingers in it, and as she leaned closer, I saw my reflection in her eyes. Then she touched my face. The sensation was unbearable. Cold first, then hot, then nothing. Like 1,000 ants crawling beneath my skin. I felt her pull something, a thin, slick layer from my cheek, and when it peeled away, it made a soft pop sound, the sound of suction breaking. She smiled, a slow, trembling smile. And with her other hand, she pressed that translucent layer over her own face. The moment it settled, the room went silent, and in the dim blue light, Leah's face became mine. She stood there, breathing through my skin, her shoulders shaking, her lips parting in disbelief. Then she whispered, almost tenderly, "It fits." She turned toward the mirror, and for a few seconds, the reflection showed two of me, one lying still, one standing tall. Then my vision dimmed. The room tilted. I tried to scream, but the voice that left me was hoarse, unfamiliar, wrong. When I woke the next morning, she was gone. So was the jar. So was half of my face. Not literally, no, but when I touched my cheek, it felt different, softer, as if the scar that defined me had shifted, moved, or been taken. I went to the bathroom mirror and stared. My reflection looked blurry, off by half a second, like a bad video call. The burn mark was still there, but fainter now, as though someone had copied it imperfectly. That was when the knock came at the door. A girl from down the hall, someone Leah used to talk to, handed me a folded note. Had to borrow something. You'll understand soon. Hell, the paper smelled faintly of disinfectant and cocoa butter, the same smell from my dreams. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat awake, staring into the mirror. My reflection stared back, eyes wide, mouth trembling. At some point, I realized I wasn't blinking, but the reflection was, and when I whispered my own name, the reflection smiled and said, "Mine now." When someone steals your face, the world doesn't end with a scream. It on quietly, in the reflection that no longer belongs to you. For 2 days, I told myself Leah was playing some cruel prank, that she hadn't actually taken anything, that what I saw was exhaustion, medication, the blur between dream and waking. But every morning, something new was missing. The faint dimple on my right cheek gone, the small mole near my jawline faded, the curve of my smile wrong. My reflection was rewriting itself, like someone was painting over me, stroke by careful stroke. And each time I saw my face, I could feel her fingers there again, cold, precise, possessive. On the third day, I saw her. I was crossing the quad, head down against the wind, when laughter stopped me in my tracks. A familiar laugh. Light, effortless. Mine. Leah was sitting on the steps outside the library, wearing my favorite jacket, hair tied the way I used to wear it before I stopped caring. Her skin glowed in the sunlight, smooth, perfect. And where my scar had been, there was now only flawless skin. When she saw me, she smiled. It was my smile. Exact. Maya, she said brightly, as if nothing had happened. You look tired. The world tilted slightly. I wanted to shout, to grab her, to tear that mask off, but everyone around us saw only one thing. Two friends talking, one radiant, one ruined. So I smiled back, tried to hold on to the part of me that still remembered who I was. You look different, I said. She laughed. Oh, I just started taking better care of myself. You should try it. And when she walked away, the sunlight caught her face, just long enough for me to see it, shimmer, as if something beneath the skin was still settling into place. That night, I scrubbed my face raw. Soap, alcohol, scalding water, nothing helped. The mirror kept showing me her, or rather, what was left after her theft. My eyes looked too close together now. My lips, thinner, paler, the scar fading still. It felt like watching a Polaroid of myself develop in reverse. I punched the mirror. It didn't break, but a faint voice whispered from the other side. Careful. It's not yours to damage anymore. I stopped going to class. People stared at me differently. Even my professors hesitated before saying my name. One of them called me Leah by mistake, then blinked as if she didn't understand why I looked so hurt. At night, I heard footsteps outside my dorm, sometimes a shadow under the door, sometimes the faint click of a key. Each time I checked, nothing, but the smell lingered, sweet and chemical, like melted plastic and skin. On the sixth night, I decided to confront her. She'd been staying in another building, room 2C, the one that used to be mine before we switched. It was late when I went. The hallways empty, except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Her door was slightly open. I pushed it gently. Inside, the air was heavy, humid. The curtains were drawn. The desk was covered with bottles, half-empty jars of Vaseline, adhesive gel, and a mirror propped against the wall. On its surface were dozens of faint fingerprints, all perfectly oval, too many for one person. And on the bed, a mannequin head, human skin stretched over it like a mask. My skin, the scar was there, perfect, unmistakable. I reached out, shaking. The surface was cold, waxy, real. When I lifted it slightly, something wet and gray slid from beneath it, like muscle without bone. That's when I heard her voice behind me. Careful with that. It tears easily. Leah stepped from the bathroom, wearing my robe, her face half covered in a translucent film. Beneath it, her features moved slowly, as if the skin hadn't quite learned how to fit her bones. She smiled. My smile. You're early, she said. I was going to give it back. Eventually. Her tone was playful, but her eyes were wild, too wide, too bright. She tilted her head, examining me. It's funny, she said softly. The more I wear it, the more it feels like me. Maybe that's how identity works. Maybe it's just habit. I lunged at her. The mirror behind us shattered. She screamed, not from fear, but from pain, as if the sound itself was peeling her apart. For a moment, our reflections tangled in the broken shards, two faces overlapping, melting into one another like wax. Then she was gone. Campus security found me hours later, sitting in the corner of the room, covered in adhesive and blood. I kept saying her name. They said no one by that name was registered here anymore. In my pocket, they found a note written in my own handwriting. You can't steal what's freely given. When they handed me a mirror for identification, I almost didn't take it. but curiosity is its own form of possession. I looked, and for a second, just a second, I saw her reflection smile. Then it whispered, faint and satisfied, "Mine now." They keep mirrors in the hospital. Every hallway, every bathroom, even the observation rooms. The doctors say it helps patients reconnect with reality. But for me, reality is the thing that hides behind the glass. It's been 3 weeks since the incident. That's what they call it, the incident. Not theft, not possession, just a neat, clinical word to fold the horror into. They think I attacked Leah out of jealousy. They think I made her up after a psychotic break. And when I try to explain, they only nod kindly, the way you'd nod at someone describing a dream they'll never wake from. But I know the truth. Leah is still out there, wearing my face, living my life. And I can see her every time I look into the glass. The first time it happened, I was brushing my teeth in the communal bathroom, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the air thick, with the smell of antiseptic. The reflection looked normal at first. Same tired eyes, same hollow cheeks. Then the left eye blinked. Just one. Mine didn't. The toothbrush fell from my hand. The reflection smiled, toothpaste foaming between perfect teeth. "You look better, Maya," it said softly. "Rest suits you." And then it reached up and touched the scar on its cheek, the scar that should have been mine. And as its fingers brushed it, I felt heat spread across my real skin, like the memory of pain returning home. When I looked again, the mirror was empty, just steam and silence. I stopped going near glass after that. I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel. I turned the small metal plate on the sink away from me. But reflections are everywhere. The polished floor, the window, at night, the water in a glass. All of them show her smiling, patient, wearing my face as if it finally fits. The nurses don't see it. They only see me staring into things that aren't there. They think I'm afraid of myself. They're wrong. I'm afraid of her. Every night, around 2 a.m., the whispers begin. "Let's play." Her voice, muffled, filtered through metal and glass, seeping from the corners of the room. At first, I tried ignoring it. Then she made it impossible. The game is simple. She appears in the reflection, and I have to mimic her. If I move when she doesn't, the glass ripples like water. If I stop when she moves, I feel my muscles lock, like she's somewhere behind my skin, tugging the strings. I lose, every time. Last night, she changed the rules. She brought a mirror. Not physically, she made one appear. A rectangle of light forming in the air in front of my bed. I could see her clearly now, standing in what looked like my old dorm room. Behind her, the same posters, the same cracked lamp, and on the desk, the same jar of gray liquid. She waved. "Remember this?" she said. "You were asleep. You didn't even struggle." Her tone was casual, almost sweet. Then she leaned forward. The glass between us fogged slightly with her breath. "You thought identity was something you had, but it's really something you share. And I'm such a generous girl." Her hand pressed against the inside of the glass. I could see her palm, every line, every pore. When I hesitated, the mirror vibrated softly, and then something cold touched the back of my hand. I looked down. A perfect imprint of her fingers was pressed into my skin, as if the glass wasn't a barrier anymore. I screamed. The nurses came running. When they entered, the mirror was gone, but my skin was wet slick, faintly gray, like glue that hadn't dried. They sedated me after that. I slept for 18 hours. When I woke, the glass in the window was gone, replaced by reinforced plastic. They said it was for my safety, but I know better. Leah needs the reflection to cross over. They think they're protecting me. They're really protecting her. I can hear her pacing now, somewhere behind the walls. The sound isn't footsteps, it's dripping. A slow rhythm. The same sound I heard that first night, when she peeled my face away like it was a second skin. Sometimes I wonder what she sees when she looks at me now. A ruined version of her? A ghost? Or maybe she sees herself, trapped behind glass, still trying to claw her way back into the body she stole. Maybe that's the game. Maybe we're both playing to see who disappears first. I can feel her getting closer. Every night, the glass surfaces hum louder. They're not barriers anymore. They're invitations. She's learning how to walk through them. If I stop talking, it's because she's here. If you see a girl with my face, with a faint burn mark that looks too clean to be real, don't trust her smile. Because when she looks at you, when she tilts her head and says your name, it won't be admiration you see in her eyes. It'll be hunger, the kind that remembers, the kind that collects. And maybe, just maybe, she'll ask you the same thing she asked me. Can I borrow your face? The mirrors came back last night. They don't belong here. Psychiatric wards aren't supposed to have reflective surfaces, but there they were, lining the far wall of my room. Not large, not dramatic. Small pieces, like shards of memory, glinting faintly in the fluorescent light. When I called for the nurse, the mirrors were gone. When she left, they returned. I stopped calling. They appear most clearly at dusk, when the ward quiets and the hall lights dim. That's when the humming begins a low metallic vibration, like an electric current running under glass. It builds until my teeth ache. Then the air bends slightly, and the mirrors shimmer into view. At first, they only showed me. Then they began showing her. Leah, or what's left of her. She's no longer pretending. The skin. She wears my skin has begun to sag in strange ways, soft at the edges like wax too close to heat. Her smile trembles as if it's held together by thread. But her eyes, my eyes, are alive, full of that same fevered need she used to hide behind compliments. You shouldn't fight me anymore, she said through the glass. It's exhausting for both of us. Her voice was distant but sharp, like it was being spoken directly inside my head. The mirrors vibrated with each word. I asked her what she wanted. She tilted her head my head and smiled. Recognition, she said. Don't you see? They think you're me. The world does. You're the imposter now. You should be grateful I gave you a new identity, a clean one. I pressed my palm against the glass. The surface felt warm, almost breathing. Give it back, I whispered. She leaned closer, her breath fogging the mirror, until our faces overlapped in the haze. You can't return what you never owned. After she vanished, the humming stopped. But the walls stayed reflective. Even the floor started to shine faintly, and when I walked across it, my reflection lagged a second behind. Sometimes, it doesn't follow me at all. It just stands there, still, smiling, while I move on without it. It's hard to tell which of us is real anymore. Maybe neither. Dr. Kern, my assigned psychiatrist, says my mirror anxiety is a displacement of guilt. That I've built a fantasy in which someone else stole my face so I wouldn't have to face what I've done. He says Leah never existed. That she was an alias I created in art school, a character I used to perform confidence and beauty, until I lost control of the act. He keeps a silver pen on his desk. I try not to look at it, but sometimes I catch my reflection in its polished surface. And when I do, Leah blinks. 2 nights ago, during the 3 a.m. observation round, I woke to a sound, a slow, wet dragging against glass. The mirrors had multiplied again, every wall covered, even the ceiling. I sat up. Dozens of my faces stared back. Some smiled, some frowned. One turned its head when I didn't. Then I saw her, standing just beyond the reflection, behind all the others. Her eyes glowed faintly, the way metal glows right before it liquefies. Her voice was a whisper of static and breath. It's time to come home. The glass rippled outward like disturbed water. I could see her hand reaching through, translucent, trembling. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming, until the mirror bulged outward, and the tip of her finger touched my wrist. It was cold, slick, real. The nurse's voice came over the intercom just then, asking if I was awake. The moment broke. The hand retracted, leaving a faint gray print on my skin that still hasn't washed off. This morning I told Dr. Kern what happened. He smiled tightly and wrote something in his notebook. He told me to embrace the metaphor, that the visitor in glass is simply my reflection, asking for reintegration. He said if I let her in, the hallucinations might stop. He doesn't understand. Leah isn't a metaphor. She's patient. She's learning. Tonight, the mirrors hum again. The air buzzes like a throat about to speak. I can see her silhouette forming behind the glass. Her outline moves differently now, slower, deliberate, like someone who's been rehearsing for this moment for a very long time. She presses her palm to the surface, and the mirror flexes inward, thin as water. "You can't keep pretending," she whispers. "There's only room for one of us." I back away, but my reflection stays put. She doesn't move. She just watches as Leah pushes through, her hand sliding out, dripping, her smile perfect. She's halfway through now, shoulders emerging, the glass stretching around her like skin. I scream for the nurses. No one comes. The alarms stay silent, because maybe this isn't happening in their world. Maybe the glass has already sealed itself shut around us, and there's no difference between here and there anymore. She's almost out now. Her hand touches my throat. It's gentle, almost loving. "You can sleep now," she whispers. "You've been awake long enough." The mirror trembles, and I see my own body reflected one last time. Eyes wide, mouth open, as if caught between two breaths. Then everything turns silver. If you find this recording, and the mirrors in your room hum when you breathe, don't look into them. Don't listen when the voice says your name, because it's not calling for help. It's calling for permission. They tell me I'm better now, that I've accepted reality, that my therapy sessions are going well. I even smiled for the discharge photo, but when I looked at the picture, I didn't recognize the woman in it. She looked like me, the way Leah used to describe me. Perfect. Smooth. The small burn scar on my cheek was gone. The nurses said it healed, that the skin graft from the incident took better than expected. I nodded, but my stomach turned cold, because the scar wasn't supposed to heal. It wasn't a wound. It was proof that I was real, that I wasn't her. The night before I left the hospital, I woke to someone humming, softly, steadily, a tune I'd never learned but somehow knew by heart. I turned toward the sound. The mirror on the opposite wall, the one Dr. Kern insisted I keep uncovered, was fogged over. At first, I saw nothing. Then a shape moved behind the haze. A face. My face. Smiling too perfectly. "See?" it whispered. "I told you we'd be beautiful." I ran my hands over my skin. Everything was smooth. Too smooth. The familiar textures of my body. The scar. The faint freckle by my lip. The uneven patch of skin on my throat. All gone. I stumbled to the sink and splashed water on my face. It shimmered, the droplets sliding across the surface like oil on glass. Then the voice came again, but not from the mirror this time. From inside. "It's not theft anymore, Maya. We're one now." I screamed for help, but no one came. In the reflection, my mouth stayed closed, the smile unmoving. Her smile, Leah's. I clawed at my cheek, desperate to feel something, but the skin didn't tear. It stretched, elastic, seamless, unbreakable. My fingers slid across it as if touching polished marble. No heat, no pulse, no pain, only perfection. Cold, absolute perfection. By morning, the nurses acted like nothing had happened. They gave me my belongings, a folded note, unsigned. "You've been perfected. Don't ruin it this time." I wanted to ask where it came from, but something inside warned me not to. Some knowledge too dangerous to say aloud. When I looked in the mirror again, my reflection blinked half a second late. Then it smiled with my lips, and I heard Leah's laugh, faint and far away, like someone breathing through a thin wall. That was 2 weeks ago. Now I'm home, back in my apartment. New locks, new curtains, same shadows. People greet me by name, but it doesn't sound right when they say it. Maya feels like a word borrowed from a stranger's mouth. Sometimes, when I pass by a shop window, my reflection keeps walking a step behind. Sometimes I wake up to find gray residue under my nails, like adhesive or dried skin. And sometimes, when I touch my cheek, I swear I feel something beating beneath it. Something that isn't a heart. I try not to think about Leah, about the mirrors, or the hospital, or the whispers, but she's everywhere. In the glint of a doorknob, in the silver edge of a spoon, in the eyes of strangers who stare too long and smile too kindly. They always say the same thing. You look flawless. Last night, I dreamed of her one final time. She was standing by the lake behind the dorm, wearing my old clothes, her reflection in the water clearer than mine. She reached out, touched her cheek where the burn scar used to be, and said almost gently, "The flaw's gone. I'm finally perfect." And then she turned toward me, and for a moment, we shared the same face again. The same eyes, same mouth, same hollow expression of someone who can no longer remember which side of the glass she's on. When I woke, the scar was back, faint but real, warm, alive, and on the mirror above my bed, written in condensation, were two words: mine, forever. The reel has reached its end. 5 stories, 5 echoes, each one asking the same question in a different tongue. Who were you before you were afraid? The tape will stop soon, but the sounds you've heard, they don't go away. They wait. They rewind themselves in the dark. Until next time, keep your mirrors covered, your doors half closed, and your dreams unfinished.